Dear head, shut up. I can't listen no more. It's late, so shut up. It's one night too much to ask for. You are a haunted house. You're superstitious. You are the coldest stone carved.
Hey, how's everybody going? Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm going to test something really quick with the stream because I was having some weird issues in the beginning here because I could not hear the music. So we're just gonna see if like I can hear anything going on. How's everybody doing tonight? Hi Sagi, I see you in the chat. Let's see if we can get okay, alright, you guys can hear me. Okay. And I just want to test one other thing. We're gonna try just picking something. Okay. Apologies, I just want to make sure that everything's working on my end. Alright, so, hi. Hopefully everybody's doing great tonight. I'm covering some very riveting drama. Actually, it's a lot funnier than it sounds on the surface. So, let me turn this light up one more click. So, we're going to be covering a festival called Woolen Folk. And so I'm going to give some preface and then we're going to go into a video. The video's got a lot of fantastic detail. I highly recommend it. I actually came across this video on somebody else that does some like commentary type stuff and thought it was an interesting story, thought it had like potential, but it turned out to be so much better than I thought once I got into it and started looking at different things. So we're going to be talking about the fiber arts community. So what's the fiber arts community? People that are crocheters, knitters, sewers, stuff like that. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the knitting and crocheting side of things. And there's a couple things terminology-wise that I honestly did not go into enough to know. It's more technical terms, but it doesn't apply to get the gist of the story. So when you hear people talking about like skeins and stuff like that, I have no idea what they're talking about either. I know that they do things based off of weights and stuff. Other than that, I'm trying to think of what else would be primarily pretty important up front. So apparently the knitting community, as it were, or is pretty tame, as I'm sure you know. Like when you think of knitting, I'm sure when you immediately think of it, you think of kind of the older woman sitting at home knitting something for their grandchild, great grandchild, or whatever. It's pretty like low impact. It's not very, very, very laborsome hobby. So like I'm pretty big into cars. Something that I've had to take a step back on with stuff. Hey, Horror, thank you. So I've had to take a step back on this whole hobby that I enjoy, but I can relate, I guess, to some of the people that get into this hobby in that they're not like very able-bodied people, okay? They're not going to be able-bodied for maybe a couple different reasons. It could be a physical limitation, such as, you know, just their age. It could be, you know, degenerative issues. It could be injuries. It could be just lifelong things. But then there's also a large group of people who are maybe mentally disabled would be a better way to group them together. And it's just, you know, people that are more prone to like anxiety, panic issues for sure, but other things. Where, this is such a calm hobby that it doesn't require a whole lot of psychological power, basically. So that's kind of pretty high level, maybe the type of people you'll find in here. The other thing that I was kind of, I wouldn't say surprised, just surprised like offhand, to find in here is that there's a lot of like hugely knowledgeable people involved in this. Like when I say that, I mean there's people that are doctorates, surgeons, chemical studies, chemists. Thank you, chemists. Oh god, just people from different scientific backgrounds, all sorts of different things. This is kind of a really broad breadth of people that are involved in this hobby. And so the last thing I kind of want to touch on is just where we're talking about here. And I didn't actually pull this up beforehand. So we're looking at Rhinebeck, New York. I apologize. So Rhinebeck, just give you an idea of like scenery for upstate New York. I actually grew up in upstate New York, a little farther from here, but we're talking about Hudson Valley. So here's Rhinebeck here. Here's the infamous Woodstock. When I say Hudson Valley, I mean literally the Hudson River runs down into the ocean. Here's Albany. Let's see what else. Kind of give you a gauge to here's Rhinebeck, Boston, New York City, Philly, Syracuse. So, kind of it sits in the middle, kind of between, let's call it like Hartford, Connecticut. Kind of like the tri-state area is really kind of what it's called in here, which would be like Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey. And it's all relatively close commute from there in and out of Manhattan, Long Island, etc. The city. So you're kind of going to get an idea on the type of people that we're going to have involved in this. So it's going to be more vivacious attitudes would probably be the best way to explain it. You've got a lot of different people involved in this, and the thing is that this little festival that takes place in this little crook of the world is apparently like one of the biggest deals in the knitting and fiber arts community. Okay, so when I say big deal, I mean you're going to hear about people traveling internationally for this. There's people that you'll hear traveled from Scotland. There are people that have traveled from Canada, from the central United States. God, there was somewhere else that I was just like blown. Oh, Australia. Just people from all over that come just to this little area. And what goes on is there's a festival for the knitting community that runs a Saturday-Sunday event. And that's the actual Rhinebeck event that you'll hear referred to a couple times. So outside of that event, you've now sparked like littler events that are also becoming like pretty big deals, because Rhinebeck, apparently this thing is like so impossible to get into because it's so popular. Like, I mean, people have been vending there for like 20-30 years. Okay? Oh Lord, I apologize.
It's completely racist.
Okay, well that was fun. That's twice my phone's done that. All right. Sorry, that threw me off. So we have people that are vending for like 20-30 years in Rhinebeck, And so it's not really easy for like up and coming vendors to oh, sorry, my phone just went off. It just started playing a video out of nowhere. You've got people that for 20, 30 years have been coming vending here. So it's kind of hard to get spaces into. So you got these little ancillary events popped up all over. And so we get into Woolen Folk. Woolen Folk's an established event up to this period. So they are in their third year this year. So they started, I think, 2019, shut down for the COVID stint, and then did 2022, and then 2023 would be their third year. So we're going to go over Emma's video here. So it's Emma in the Moment made this video. I've already got it queued up to where we start getting into. She's going to tell us a little bit about Woolen Folk, and then I'll probably stop at points to go over things that I found ancillary to her video. Plus, there's some things that like are literally I just wanted to show a little more in depth from her video.
Folk event featured yarn vendors and live music, and this year was set to be its third iteration. The first 2 years were co-planned by Felicia Eve and Catherine Clark, owners of Brooklyn-based yarn stores String Thing Studio and Brooklyn General.
Okay, so this is kind of important, and I just wanted to stop and point this out because understand, for the first 2 years, this was a co-planned event. So it was these two individuals together planning this event.
Store, respectively. According to most accounts, Felicia was more interested in the yarn aspect of the festival, the wool, and Catherine was more interested in the live music aspect of the festival, or the folk. Felicia planned the festival this year pretty much entirely alone. There actually was another organizer named Pam who is mentioned in some of the vendor stories. I couldn't find her last name or really any information about her anywhere online, so I am not sure. I didn't do a deep dive on her, but there was someone else. It wasn't just Felicia by herself. There are, of course...
Okay, so I want to touch on, I looked for a bunch of things with this, and I was not able to find anything else out about this Pam. So I'm just going to sit there and let you know, first off, some things that are not going to be covered right away in the story. So this event, when it starts off... no, let's not jump to that quite yet, because she's just going to set up the backstory for this.
Of course, a variety of reasons why a duo may split up, not the least of which is that planning a live event at this scale is a huge time commitment. So this on its own might not have meant anything, but knowing what we know now, this is the first of many red flags that we will see. Who is Felicia Eve, the event organizer of Woolen Folk? Like I said, Felicia is the owner of String Thing Studio in Brooklyn, New York. Not entirely relevant, but interesting, is that she was a licensed podiatrist for 12 years, and she split her time between Buffalo, New York, and Washington, D.C. while she was doing podiatry. When she, her husband, and her 3 kids moved to Brooklyn, New York, she ended up kind of stopping with the podiatry and being a stay-at-home mom. Apparently, she was really involved in the PTA. She did a lot of volunteer fundraising and things like that. In an interview with Black-Owned Brooklyn, she says that she was inspired to open the yarn store after her mother passed away at 64. Her mother apparently had always been really big on always follow your passions, do what you love, and if you can make a little money from it, then you should do that. So she says that her mother's death inspired her to start this yarn store. She said that this loss got her thinking about her passions in life, which is cool and probably true. I'm not saying it's not true, but she also did receive a $250,000 inheritance, which served as the startup funds for her business. And if you want to know how I know about the inheritance, it's because she was in a QuickBooks ad where she gives the details about her inheritance money and says that the thing she was bad at with running her business was balancing her books, and that's why she needed QuickBooks. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Felicia Eve.
That is going to be a really, 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 really interesting point to this whole freaking drama. This person, okay, so they're a doctor, first off, and a surgeon at that. They're a podiatrist, so they deal with the foot, ankle, and all that. There's going to be some misconstrued verbiage. You'll see where some people have said that she's a pediatric doctor. She is not. I think that's just them misreading the whole podiatry thing. So if you see pediatrics, that's why. I think it's just a misread. The other thing is that she has this business. I don't know if we touch on in this video. In another video, apparently, and I cannot substantiate this, her business was in a bit of trouble going into this third year because of having to be closed for COVID and things like that. So they were in kind of the red instead of the black as far as operating costs to begin with. And then you compile on top of that this person literally was in an ad for QuickBooks, and whether it's true or not, stated, hey, I'm not very good at managing my money, which is why I had to get this product.
If maybe not good with money, that piece of information on its own doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you'll see how it's interesting the further we go on. That's enough about Felicia for now. I will get much more into it later on, I promise. But before we go into any of what happened at Fiberfest, let's go over a little bit of the background timeline leading up to the event on October 20th. On March 17th, 2023, Felicia announced that Woolen Folk 2023 would take place at Stone Ridge Orchard in New York on...
And that's this post we're going to start with right here. So you can see this is 35 weeks ago. Just to give you an idea, because she shows this image, but she doesn't show the whole post. And I just wanted people to see kind of what was all said around this. And as you can see, kind of going through the comments here, there's a lot of people like really excited for this. Pretty well liked, 1,000 likes. And it just goes on to, you know, hey, we're taking, this will be a big deal here. So, see, we will be taking place, and vendor applications are open now. This is going to become... Bye, Soggy. You have a great night. Hopefully you catch the VOD and you enjoy it. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. So you're going to see here that the vendor applications are now open. Link in bio. Head over to the website. Find it there. Okay. That's going to be another key thing to keep in mind. So right now, I'm going to keep a tally on things to kind of keep everybody on track, because it gets a little convoluted when you're listening to all this stuff. So you got partnership broke up, not the greatest with money. We have this event created. We're taking applications for vendors and everything now. And as you can see, it's October 20th of this year that this all went down. So not very long ago.
On October 20th. And this announcement was made on Instagram. In tandem with this initial announcement, there was also an announcement that vendor applications are open, right when they announced the venue. And by the end of April, some vendors were already announcing on their Instagrams that they would be vending at the fest. At this point...
Okay, and so that's, again, new venue, Stone Ridge. Okay, so I do want to... Stone Ridge Orchard. They have on there, too, that, you know, vendor applications open now. This is where we're going to be. And, you know, everyone was kind of really excited for this. Stone Ridge Orchard is literally an orchard in upstate New York. They are in a Socrates area, I believe, of upstate New York, which is that Hudson Valley area. They literally are an apple orchard. I mean, they grow apples. They do the whole apple cider business. It's a pretty large kind of business up there. There's a lot of like seasonal tourism that goes on in upstate New York. So when, you know, you get into fall and all that, you get a lot of seasonal tourism going on.
The vendors who were announcing that they were going to be there on Instagram had signed a contract, which I found a copy of in a Reddit comment. So I wasn't a vendor, but the details that I read.
And from what I've seen now, we're going like 2 months out. I will show the contract that was found. I don't know if that's shown in this video. I don't remember. But I did find the exact thing that she's mentioning here, which is... Oh, God. Reddit. Going to be relating to this post here. And it is... here's the contract. We'll go over it when we get closer to like things going on, but it looks like a copy and pasted template for the legal contract regarding this show.
In this contract on Reddit line up with the vendor stories that have been coming out in the past few weeks, so I have no reason to believe that someone would type up an entire fake contract. It was pretty lengthy, but just so you know where I got my sources, take it with a grain of salt. But let's say the contract is real, which I think it is. It states that the vendors must submit their payment by May 15th in order to secure their spot. And there was a slight variety in vendor booth pricing, but the basic price was $900 for a 10 by 10 foot booth. A shared booth was half the cost at $450, and there was a discount for returning vendors. They had to only pay $800 for a full booth. The website also lists a special 50% off deal for any BIPOC Woolen Folk vendors. Another thing to note is that vendor staff had to pay for entry to the event as well, and we'll get into ticket pricing a little bit later on. I don't know if this is standard, if the staff has to pay for entry to an event, because I would assume.
And so I'm gonna touch on a couple things here first. So, first things first, let's not ruin where we're going with all this. I want to open this window here. So this I found is the full storefront for what they were selling for spaces, okay? Did they? Oh, no. Okay. This does have all of the applicable information, and we're going to keep referring back to this because there's a lot of good information on this page. But so here's all the booth fees that we're talking about initially. So if you're a returning vendor, you get paid $800. If you're a new vendor, you pay $900. These are for 10 by 10 booths, okay? If you are doing a shared booth, it's $450, and I think this is for and let's see, food vendor booth $300. You could do like a payment plan, and then this here is for a partial, and this is for a full of this people of color registration. But when I went into it, I kind of wanted to point something out, and it says it's for a emerging artist scholarship. So I don't know if that's something that like there was a sponsorship involved and maybe a vendor so like kind of sponsored it, or if the event sponsored it. I haven't really found a whole lot of information out about that. But we're also going to see there's this pre-party gathering sponsor, Patio Podcast. Oh my good lord, Podcast Patio. Good God, why was that so hard to say? Podcast Patio. There's this GOAT event sponsor, bar sponsor, Wi-Fi event sponsor. I guess stage sponsors, because they have like a I don't know, I don't remember how the stage differentiated from the patio, but I think that was for guest speakers, where this is specifically for like podcasters. Let's see, winding area, and emerging artists sponsorship fund. So I think that's where it feeds into these reduced rates up top. The vendor entry registration, vendor staff entry registration, additional, guest speakers, vendor registration, payment plan, special guest, or special guest to warm up. This is going to be something that we're going to touch on. And then entry I don't understand. Allowed 2 members of staff free of charge. Okay. So these are things that are not mentioned in any of the videos that I watched. So this is just the, put your booth name and everything else in here. And then your staff, you're allowed to bring 2 staff members free of charge. Now, I don't know if that is each staff or individually. I'm assuming that would be the vendor plus 1 additional person. So 2 total, not vendor plus 2 additional, which would be 3 total. So some of these businesses that you're going to see are fairly significant. I mean, they would at least have, I think most businesses would at least have at least 2 staff people. I don't see anybody being a solo person on this venture, but unless you're maybe selling, just like things that you've made. But keep in mind, it's pretty pricey to get a booth here. You're talking $900. I mean, for a lot of places, that's a good chunk of your rent, if not your rent. So keep all this in mind. And then we also want to touch on previously. I wanted to show, because this never gets touched on with this, and I just wanted to show for scale and for comparison. This is their previous venue, so this would be 2019 and 2022. They had their event here, and I really wanted to show this is a huge hangar level style building that they could house a bunch of different vendors in. Then they had all this area over here. So square footage of this place, they could easily hold, I think it says somewhere on the site here, 10,000 people comfortably. And I believe it based on everything I'm seeing. Because there's a huge grounds to it and everything. If you look, it's gonna, there we go. There's 2 of these giant outdoor buildings where you can fit loads of people under. Just the way it obviously was before, this place was definitely a big part of the draw. It's at a pretty location. This event you're going to hear about brings roughly, it started, I think the first year with a few hundred, then they said they got a few thousand on 2022, and then this year, this year they were expecting about 3,000 people. Okay, so this is not and it's a 1-day event on a Friday before all of this Rhinebeck stuff. Okay, so it's a big event. To give you an idea, I looked up a comparable building in my area for size wise to fit probably what they're expecting for people, and I came up with this building, which is 110,000 square foot of retail space, and it would comfortably house about 400 booths. And I've seen it house pretty close to that because I've been to a couple different venue events here. So that's just for comparison. Oh god, I'm ruining it. But okay, so we've gone over that. We are going to be going over, we've already gone over Felicia. So Felicia is now going to be running the event on her own this year. She no longer has her partner involved. I think we're going to hear next about the location, which is, there's the video.
That they are working during the event. They're not going around hanging out. I just thought that was interesting. Don't know if that's normal. Vendor staff tickets were $25 for the main event and $160 to the Thursday night warm-up event.
Oh, and yes, I was going to touch on that too. I apologize for interrupting again so quickly. Yes, it, as far as I know, it is typical, at least from what I've done. I've worked at a couple different vending different events like fairs and stuff like that, where I've been there for an employer for, you know, showing a product, and they did have to pay for me to get in. I think you do get a reduced rate normally because I'm there working the event. Typically you'll get something like meal vouchers or something. Like, things are kind of discounted, or there's things that are included with the price of the booth and all that. So, as well as you get your time, you know, for setting up where you're going to be, what you're doing, etc.
Which was apparently mandatory for vendors. So, again, more on tickets later, but just putting that out there. And I also want to say...
and I do want to start, because we're going to cover so many different things here. We're going to get a notepad going. So we've got partner breakup. And then we got not good with money. Not. And then, what else did I say? Oh, Lord. I'm failing tonight. We got not good with money. We've got that they're taking the money early already for location. So let's put the location, because that'll become a thing. And I don't think this also gets touched on at all. So that big previous location, so that other previous location, a yarn festival. So yes, Jim, I am covering a yarn festival. Yeah, it's actually a lot cooler than you would think. I watched stuff on this thinking it was going to be funny, and like, there's no way in hell this could be an actual drama. And oh my god, I'm not kidding. We're going to get into it, but I believe this is a 6-figure scam that has occurred here, and that's putting it lightly. Where there's so much to cover here, but yeah,
$900 is a pretty high.
Ooh, Lord. So yeah. Anyway, we've got we got everything. We're gonna get into location.
Booth fee, from what I can see. The New York Sheep.
I was gonna say the location that they were supposed to have it at was booked because of a wedding that got postponed because of COVID, which is why they changed it to an apple orchard instead of the location they were going to have it at.
Wool fee starts at $400 and then is on a sliding scale as it gets closer to the event. At its peak, it's only $550, and this is for an event that has an estimated attendance of 20,000 people. Woolen Folk's attendance is much smaller. And speaking of money, events like this...
And again, like I said, they're saying that it's a $20,000 or 20,000 people attend the big show, okay? And they're only charging up to $500 for their booths. And you've got the show that's literally 10% of that, and they're charging $900 for their booths. So double the price for a tenth of the people.
Are expensive to run. There are rental fees, venue fees, music fees for the live music, insurance, permits, etc. In addition to the ticket sales and the vendor sales, there were also a number of sponsors. Sponsorship money also went through the Woolen Folk website.
Oh yeah. It's at least $100,000 scam in my opinion. I've got full belief that it could be upwards of $300,000.
So I can actually see how much the sponsors paid. There were different levels of sponsorship, the highest being $7,500 and the lowest at $1,000. There were 9 sponsors for this event, and we will talk about this more and break this down more later, so just hold on to that as well. So back to the contract.
She does a really good breakdown with the sponsors and the money. She comes in way lower than I did on a lot of stuff.
A little bit. It says that the booth fee will include The booth, 1 long table, and 2 chairs. Any additional tables and chairs have a rental fee of $16 per table and $3.50.
Okay, so this is important. This is actually being pulled from the contract that I showed earlier, which is this contract. And it's literally right here. No. Highlight what I want you. So this is the booth specs that she's showing in her video right now. So it's 1 table. It's a 10 by 10 space with 2 chairs. And shared spaces, double, triple possible. You can add extra stuff. All other display furniture and any special product lighting are the responsibility of the vendor. But it does show in here, at least, you know what? I'm going to jump right back to here. Nope, wrong legal document. That's another legal document. Making checks payable. I think they said that 2 chairs is included. Shared space. They do state at some point in here that electric is included. Not responsible for product spotlighting. Electricity and Wi-Fi access are provided throughout the venue. That's what I was looking for. So we're right in here saying electricity and Wi-Fi are provided throughout. Spoilers, doesn't happen that way.
50 cents per chair. The booth will also include electricity and Wi-Fi access. It says all other display furniture and any special product lighting are the responsibility of the vendor. The contract also includes the schedule, indicating that the vendors will...
Oh, this is way worse than the Storm Area 51 of the Knitting World Gym.
be vending on Thursday night from 5 to 9 p.m. and on Friday from 12 to 7 p.m.
So this is kind of a common thing. Just to let anybody know, like, yes, you have your come in and set up and break down. And like I said, I've done vendor setups for like a state fair facility before, where we went in, we set stuff up. You had pretty much had everything set up the day before, and then your breakdown was like the day after with that kind of stuff. That ran for like a week, but obviously smaller venue, smaller time constraint, smaller amount of vendors.
It says that there will be a load-in day on Wednesday, load-out will be on Friday night and Saturday morning. The contract also states that all vendors would be provided food and water during the event, something you would think I wouldn't have to point out, but this will also come back later. So, the vendors had applied, the contracts were signed, and Woolen Folk started selling tickets to attendees on July 1st, 2023. The early bird tickets were on sale for a week at $40, and then on July 8th, the price went up to $50. As I've sort of alluded to, there was also this special Thursday night warm-up event.
Okay, so this is a pricey event. Just like if you aren't catching that there, this is pricey even from the attendee standpoint. Okay, this is $40 and $50 pre-sale, and I heard day of it was actually 55 or 60. And in all my research, it kind of varies around that per person to get in. Okay, and so you're talking about, and this is where you're going to see the money add up really quick here. I kind of would love to be able to share this on screen. We'll get a calculator going, but so we're doing 3,000 people conservatively, their judgment, times $50 equals, that's $150,000 right there. That's just in their ticket sales. Now, all the vendors, even saying that the vendors are all reoccurring vendors from the previous 2 years, not a single person is new, times there was 91 vendors, and I can show you how I found that out, is another $72,800. Everything I've seen for renting a space to facilitate the number of people that they're expecting, plus the numbers of vendors that they're expecting, runs about $20,000, okay? So they should have almost $200,000 for everything else. And that would mean, like, hiring shuttle services. That should be, hiring their food vendors and everything else. And like I said, this event was like hugely critically acclaimed in this world.
And which included exclusive shopping and a catered dinner. Tickets for this warm-up event were $250, which
yeah, so there's this warm-up event that happens on Thursday night, and from everything I've seen, it took place between 5 and 9 o'clock, so roughly 4 hours. You, as a participant, paid, you had to pay $250, so, and I was supposed to be a select number of things, so I'm going to say, even if it's just for like 100 people, again, it's $25,000, right? No. Am I off on that math? 25 times 100 equals $25,000. Yeah. So $25,000 on top of the other previous amounts. We're now well over $250,000. And then there's also, I believe, and I do want to check this because I don't want to give too much false information out. Food and booth vendor, the pre-party sponsors, winding area, registration, early registration, vendor staff, $160. I'm gonna guess that. So I'm going to guess that they're going to have to pay that per vendor. So we'll do 160 times 91 vendors, which again, I can show this. That's another $14,000. So almost just alone in their vendors coming and setting up for this, which I believe, if I'm not wrong, it says in the contract, the vendors must attend this. So you're making 91 vendors pay $160, hopefully, to bring them and their staff, at least, to this event. Yeah, it's $160 for 4 hours, Jim. That's for a vendor. It's $250 if you wanted to attend as a person. So, and I'm like I said, I'm guessing that they maybe limited it to 100 people, so that way traffic was low, making this like kind of an exclusive thing. So they made about $40,000 just on this warm-up event section. And like I said, there's roughly another $200 to $250 being spent on the event itself, or being brought in by the event itself, basing off of the numbers that they give, because I'll show in legal documents and stuff, the numbers that they give for attendance, and then I can show you exactly how many vendors there are, and then I can show you the pricing on this webpage right here. So, yeah. And that's not including, I'm not including, and I don't think this video, Emma does, includes any of these sponsorships that are in here. You limit to the... It sounds so bad. You limit the people, which also limits the potential for vendors to break. Yeah. So this was just a pre-warm-up show. So this was their pre-show to the show that took place. So Thursday night was this warm-up show. Friday night is their actual show. Saturday, Sunday is the big show that they're not their subsidiary, because I don't want to give this other big show a bad name. But yeah, this Wool and Folk show was held just before another bigger show that then took place on Saturday, Sunday, which brought in roughly 20,000 people. And people literally were vending there for the past 20 to 30 years. From what I understand, basically, in order to get a vendor spot at this show, you have to die. There's no way around it. That's how just acclaimed this show is. And then this show was building up to it. Like I said, this show brought in some international people, like talking from not just like Canada, which would be directly to the north, but you're talking about Scotland, and Australia, Canada, and I want to say there was even another place, but I can't remember. So I'm just going to go with those three. Plus, you had people traveling Several vendors have said they traveled 8, 12 plus. I think there was one vendor that traveled 20 plus hours from where I'm at in the kind of Central Plains area of the United States all the way out to upstate New York to do this. This compiles so badly,
Doesn't seem
so
worth
quickly.
it to me. That's crazy. But that's also knowing what I know now and just knowing how I like to spend my money, which is not for exclusive events like that. I don't blame anyone for paying that amount. I've seen some people feel like ashamed that they sort of fell for paying that much money for what they got, but it's not on them. It's on the organizers who made it seem like this would be worth it. On July 7th, they also announced another option that people could buy tickets for, a shuttle bus from String Thing Studio in Brooklyn and then a pickup in Midtown that went to the event. This pretty much is what it sounded like, just a big bus that would carpool to a bunch of different Rhinebeck events for the weekend. So it wasn't just to Woolen Folk, it was also going to go to Cakepalooza and then Rhinebeck. The bus...
So this is just one of those typical, like, I had no clue this was a huge thing. Right? Yeah. No, wait till we get into the crazy. We're not even getting into the crazy stuff, but like this gets so crazy.
Was scheduled to take attendees to yarn shops in the Hudson Valley area. Woolen Folk.
Okay. So this, in studying this, I've learned different things. So you've got the Woolen Folk and Cakepalooza, which are just like two ancillary shows. The New York Sheep and Wool Festival, that is the big show that they keep referring to, or you'll hear it referred to as Rhinebeck. That is Rhinebeck.
Cakepalooza and Rhinebeck. This would include transportation to and from the hotel as well on the day of these events. The cost of the bus was listed at $470, including the warm-up experience, or $245 not including the warm-up experience. The website states, should you choose not to go to the Woolen Folk warm-up, you will stay at the hotel.
Okay, so let's see. Now there are two different prices for this trip based on you will be attending only the Woolen Folk show, which is only 7 hours. Okay, so it's 7 hours on a Thursday, 7 hours on a Friday that their show is. And then for those attending the warm-up, like I said, was roughly 4 hours from 5 till 9. I can't even find out if that was for sure because it fluctuates a little between 4 and 8 and 5 and 9.
That evening. The listing for the bus also includes information for what hotel the group will be staying at, which was the Holiday Inn...
Poughkeepsie.
Poughkeepsie. Okay.
Like you plow a field and then plow Kipsy.
Okay. Not how I thought. Which was the Holiday Inn Poughkeepsie at $179 per night. So, tickets have gone on sale in July, which must mean that the contract with the venue has been solidified, right? Right?
This is where we're going to get into the first of many missteps.
Well, according to the Town of Marbletown meeting minutes from the town board meeting on August 28th, this was not the case. I just want...
She does a fantastic job. I really don't want to take away from this, but we have the actual meeting minutes right here. And it is a long read. You can find this. But because there's so much information I want to cover, basically it just says a couple key things. So here's where, 3,000, but even the Orchard believed it was too many. They wanted to limit to 2,000. Mind you, they already have sold tickets at this point, okay? And they have their vendors. This is all taking place in August, okay? The event is in October. They stated in their original post, I closed it out, but they originally posted in March and said that they wanted everything shored up by May, okay? Here they are as the event, not even having the actual location firmed up in August. So just that's going to be a big deal and a big part of this. But this kind of just goes through, and she does a fantastic job, and I don't mean to cut her off, but she does a fantastic job basically saying that, kind of playing out some key points in here, because the person who did these minutes is fantastic. The board was concerned with several different things, moving traffic being one of them, because again, this is taking place on a Friday. She believes the orchard can support 2,000 attendees and will be able to manage the traffic and attendance. So they're saying at 2/3 of what that's planned, they would be able to handle this, okay? They would be able to handle this. But here's the thing. It kind of falls back into the event planner's hands, because they've got to go through and get a bunch of special permits and everything else. But this stuff is out there. I'm going to save this aside because I do want to keep it a link to it. And I know I am going to skip forward on this video a little bit. Oh, God. So we're going to skip to here.
Let's move on to September 17th, when Felicia went live on the Woolen Folk Instagram and announced that the festival would move to the Foreland, a different venue, in the Catskills, about a 30-minute drive north from Stone Ridge Orchard.
Okay, so a lot of stuff just got said right there. So basically, this all falls through, and they don't secure the venue. So what happens? They have to change venues. They find a venue. I don't know how they found this venue. I had never heard of it, and I'm from relatively close to the area. I know how to say Poughkeepsie. I know how to say Saugerties. I know how to say a lot of things from those areas. I've been through several of them. Rhinebeck. They're not very far from me, and I've never heard of these locations before. So I don't know how they came up with this Foreland, but the Foreland location, I do want to look that up just to give you an idea. So remember, Foreland, and there it is, Foreland Catskill. So this is the location, and I'm by no means giving them any heat, but their location, I thought they had some nice pictures. So their location, here it is. It's kind of like a really different plan layout. Image gallery, there she is. So it's like an older architecture style building. It's actually a couple different buildings. Like, as you can see, just different layouts and different floor plans within it. Now, mind you, keep looking at these pictures and understand 90 vendors, 3,000 people, okay? I really want to get back to the one picture that really does it justice. Because there's this outside, but this one. So you can kind of see it. I don't want to keep hovering over it, but right in here is parking lot. And then I believe these buildings are also part of it. And then it's these buildings, these bigger beige buildings here. Okay. 3,000 people, 90 vendors in that. There isn't even parking enough, which will become a thing.
In the live, she attributes the move of venues to inclement weather that weekend, stating that the Foreland offers much more indoor room to vend so people can stay dry. And just so we can orient ourselves to where we are, the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, which is where Rhinebeck is located and where all of these satellite events are located around, is about halfway between the Stone Ridge Orchard and the Foreland.
Okay, damn. I want to go back because that was a great map. And so Stone Ridge Orchard, where they're originally going to have it. This is the big event that takes place on Sunday, okay? So this is now their new location. So it's beyond where they're at. Oh, hey, Sagi, welcome back. You didn't miss a whole lot. So we've changed locations now from originally the Hudson River Valley, which was in Saugerties. It was down a little more south than this even, I believe. No, I don't remember. Let's not go there. So this is the main event. This is their new location. This is the place that they sold everybody on, the orchard that they said they had secured and was their location back in March when they initially released everything. And then we saw the minutes from the meeting in August saying that, nope, they hadn't secured the permit, nothing. Yeah. About 35 people per vendor. Yeah. And then so now we're going to the foreland, and I showed the building. It's called the Varied Industry Building. It's the State Fairgrounds here. Okay, that's a 110,000 square foot building. It can accommodate 400 plus vendors. It can easily accommodate probably closer to I'd say probably comfortably could accommodate the vendors and the people that they're planning for. I know it can accommodate 400 plus vendors, and that I think is like if you stack them tight. But just to give you an idea, like I said, it's a 110,000 square foot location. You're going to find out that this place is not quite that big.
In the live, Felicia says that the venue change shouldn't change people's accommodations or plans because it's really close to where the other events are going on anyway. And closeness is relative, but the Foreland is much further out of the way, and depending on where people were staying in relation to the other festivals,
this becomes a big deal.
Especially to Rhinebeck, this might have not just been a quick and easy change. I know at least some people online have said that they had to change their accommodations and lose deposits after the venue change.
So, there's about a 30 to 40 minute, depending on whose story you go off of, commute from the Stone Ridge Orchard to the new location. Meaning it's at least 20-25 minutes away from where they're originally at. Okay, and so this is how she lets everybody know that there's an event change. And when I mean everybody, I mean the vendors, I mean everybody. Okay? So
I'm gonna save this and post it to the to our feed anyway. I'll save it in the
That's Felicia talking. All right, this was posted June 24th. Oh, this was, I think, the initial apologies. I think this is the initial, like, getting everything organized, saying what's going on, kind of giving like a pre-warm-up vendor info. And then you can also see there was kind of maybe potentially going to be issues with where they were initially with the Stone Ridge Orchard. I read through this post, and it says that there's no real close, like, Amtrak, which would be your train services, from the city, which, you know, God, I'm trying to explain. Public transportation's a big thing when you live in and around Manhattan. You got a lot of buses, you got a lot of trains, and you don't typically drive. People that drive in and out of the city, it's an expensive thing to do, and there's not a lot of parking, and it takes forever. So you're better off relying on public transportation. That has been my giving you the rundown in a second of what it's like living in and around Manhattan. So there. But yeah. So this was just to say the Stone Ridge location. I think that was kind of some vendor warm-up stuff. Here is the list of vendors, by the way. So when you total this up, it's 5 wide, and I forget how many rows it was, but you get 90 plus 1 here, 91 vendors. I don't know if that was important. There we go. Here's a good picture of the Foreland. I was looking for this. So this is their new location. 91 vendors, 3,000 people. Like, and we're going to find out that there's some caveats to this location. This we'll get into. It kind of gives a little bit more of a breakdown about the warm-up experience, but yes, it was literally $250 per person. But we can probably get rid of that. I did find their Eventbrite for the warm-up. There's not a whole lot of like great information to be found in this, other than it gave the actual Woolen Folk event time, but the warm-up, it didn't really give much. Let's see, we got the contract. I think this is the duplicate tab that I had open. So we're going to get into all of that fun stuff. This is how I found for the main page for here's all of the pricing for everything. So I think we can close that, but I want to get to the Instagram post if I can find it. Nope. That we'll eventually get into. Okay, I can't find it.
And one of the worst things about this venue change was the fact that it was originally just said in Alive. A lot of vendors, attendees, and sponsors missed it completely.
So yeah, that's what I was trying to get to show. Is basically she did this in a Instagram live. Is how she updated everybody. Not an email, like not literally. If you didn't see the live, which if you go on the Instagram and look, it's not like I can jump through and find times and have timestamps like you can on a YouTube video like this. You have to sit through the whole thing, and it was a 40-minute live.
There was no email sent out announcing the change. It was just a live and then an Instagram post. So now that we went through all of that about the original venue, let me tell you a little bit about the new venue, the Foreland, which is where the event ended up happening. So the Foreland is this beautiful venue that is usually used for private events and weddings. According to their booking information, the buildings have a capacity for 500 guests.
Did you catch that? Let me repeat that.
The Foreland is this beautiful venue that is usually used for private events and weddings. According to their booking information, the buildings have a capacity for 500 guests.
500 people. That's their capacity. Remember, I showed you stuff where they were projecting 3,000. The Orchard tried to talk to them down to 2,000 people attending. This is not considering staff. This is not considering the 91 people times 2 is 182 people roughly for the vendors. And then you've got your food and everything else,
which breaks down to 200 guests indoors and 500 if they are using the indoor and outdoor spaces.
So, and that's combined.
And this is 500 wedding guests. I used to work as an assistant to a wedding planner, and we would do these big weddings in Orange County. Our biggest wedding that we did was, I think, 250 guests or so, and that felt like a huge amount of guests to have at a wedding. If the Foreland's capacity is 500 guests, that means it's big. Their website says that the venue has 15,000 square feet of indoor and outdoor space. And looking at these layout mock-ups...
Okay, and so that's a key thing that gets kind of glossed over with her information that I found, like, really key. It's 15,000. Remember, I showed a comparable, like, building, and it's 110,000. Literally 10 times the size of this.
For wedding guests, we can get a bit of a sense of scale. With a wedding versus a vending event, there's obviously a different furniture setup, right? Like for a yarn festival, you don't need 3,000 chairs and seating at tables for 3,000 people. But you also don't just have like empty space then.
Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead here.
On October 16th, we get another update on Instagram 4 days before the festival outlining the parking options for the event.
Oh, and this is fantastic. You guys are going to love this. So she's Felicia, not she as in Emma, the person doing this video. She is in Felicia, the event manager, has now booked the Foreland, notified everybody through an Instagram live, not an email to any of the vendors. So there was vendors that didn't even know the event location had changed. And now she's going to line out parking for the 3,000 attendees plus the 91 vendors.
So the plan for parking was announced on this lovely little slideshow that was not emailed to people, I believe. And it has 4 parts. The first part is street parking. Yay! The next option is 100 parking spots at Elliott Park, which is a 2-minute drive or a 14-minute walk to the Foreland.
Basically, imagine just this option is not even existing because you got to have your vendors parked somewhere.
Venue. There is mention of a shuttle bus running from this parking location to the venue until the parking situation is full. The next spot is called Dutchman's Landing. This has 350 parking spots.
So roughly 10% of the people could park here.
This is a 3-minute drive or an 18-minute walk. And then the last option is the Walmart parking lot, which apparently has 1,000 parking spaces.
1,000 plus 300. It does not equal 3,000. You have to at least be planning for at least, like, even if you're trying to, like, really plan ahead and sit there and say, okay, people are primarily going to come in groups of 2 and they'll probably come together, so we need at least 1,500 parking spaces plus don't forget your other 100 parking spaces for your vendors. That's literally just those 2 groups of people. Plus you're going to have your event, like, because you're going to have people that are hopefully managing your event as far as like assistance just throughout with information, security, etc. So say another 100 parking spots, you're going to want probably to be on the safe side at least 2,000 parking for 2,000 people. And so they don't even have it for that. They have it for 1,300.
And is a 28-minute walk away from the venue. If you're keeping track, this is still...
And that's a 28-minute walk. Remember what I said. Like, let's think about the people going to this kind of thing. You're not going to be mentally well-bodied, typically. Like, it's just not the type of person that this hobby attracts.
Only about 1,500 spaces, and we can assume that maybe some of these attendees are carpooling. Some of them are taking the Amtrak, but kind of seems like maybe we don't have enough parking here.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Another one. Like, she's counting 1,000 parking spaces for the store, and that's like nobody in the store. Which, okay, yeah, fine. A Friday afternoon between noon and 7, maybe not their peak period of time, but because you want probably most people to be gone or leaving, like they're going to be closed at 7. So you're going to want most of your crowd already gone by then, so it's not like you're interfering with people after work, but still, like, it's going to be a busy place. Like, the store's going to need like, I don't know, probably a third of that to run their normal operations.
At this point, people started noticing that maybe something was up here. There was a post on the Craft Snark Reddit that was like, hey, have you guys seen the parking? Looks kind of crazy. It looks like maybe not enough. So now let's break down what actually happened. I want to look at the event from 3 different perspectives: the vendors, the sponsors, and the attendees.
She does a fantastic job, and I'm going to reinforce a lot of her findings with even more information that I've found since her videos come out. But before we jump into that, let's recap here. So you got a festival with 3,000 people, 100 vendors, and from what I understand, to touch on what you were saying there, Jim, this has been a pretty profitable event for most of these vendors. Like, this is turning out to be like a big thing because, like, you had there's like different podcasting groups and all that stuff in this community that come out there. They had, the vendors that are there. There's a very, very large diversity of vendors. And I know that one person, when I watched their video, they said that their average spending budget is roughly $200 to $300. And it sucked because they lost $50 at the gate. So it already knocked down what they would normally spend. And so it's like, these people, while you're talking about like what you're saying there, Jim, you're not having a high volume of people that are purchasing. Their purchasing power per person is high. I mean, you're talking about this can easily bring in a significant amount of money for these vendors. And unfortunately, you're going to hear a lot of vendors lost money in this, and they were sorely disappointed. And a lot of people that even were advocates of the event because of the 2 years prior were like ashamed because they recommended some like pretty big name people to come out to support this event, and like things just went to hell. And like, again, we're not even getting into like what's like the oh my gods of this. Like this is Woolstock. I'm calling it Woolstock. Okay, this they're just shy of the Hells Angels.
These stories were taken from public Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, and Ravelry posts, as well as a few that were privately sent. In some cases, I will indicate whose story a piece of information came.
I did not take any of the Ravelry stuff because I'm sorry, I'm not going to sign up to like something that's like specific for this kind of research. You can hate on me, but she does get some good information from there.
Came from, and in some cases, people have asked to remain anonymous, so I will not be disclosing that. Very quick review of how the event was set up in case you forgot, because it's been like 20 minutes since we talked about it. But on Thursday night, there was this early bird shopping event, which was intended to feel exclusive and VIP, and a limited number of tickets were sold. This was marketed as a chance to shop stock early, meet and greet with vendors, enjoy a sit-down catered dinner from Fig and Pig, and a live musical performance. And then the next day, the festival was scheduled from 12 to 7 p.m., as the Wool and Folk event, which was meant to be, according to the website, a celebration of our diverse, inclusive, and extraordinary fiber community mixed with music, food, and incredible experiences. AKA yarn shopping, food, and live music. Right from the get-go, on Wednesday.
Okay, so before we get into the deets and the details of the story, right? So you heard it there. Like, I want you to like just hopefully build up a picture in your head of like maybe like that fall fair, like carnival, maybe like county fair kind of vibe is kind of what I had built up in my mind when I thought about all this, as far as like what to expect. Like, you know, maybe a string of like the different food vendors, you know, that kind of live band, maybe a couple different ones, maybe a couple different forms of entertainment, whatever. And then a bunch of vendors, okay? And that's what I would be there for. So, again, I'm used to the car show side of this, so I'm just basing it off of car shows, which I've been to, which, you know, I wouldn't say would be too dissimilar.
Vendors started running into problems when they showed up to set up for the event. When they showed up,
I love how this is more fascinating than Fire Festival.
Vendors said that there was nowhere to check in and no clear person who was in charge. The vendors had been told in writing that they would be vending inside, and when they arrived, they found out that they would...
Oh, yeah, no, this you'll find out. Like I said, this has had the best reputation.
Actually have to vend outside and be prepared for the weather.
Okay, Soggy, so if you've been to a car show, like, aside from maybe, like, your normal town one where it's, like, just a bunch of guys getting together, you know, like an actual established car show, like... everything that I based my stuff off of when I was looking into this, we have a car show called Good Guys. And Good Guys is like a really big car club that's actually based out in California. Well, they do shows all across the United States throughout the year. And like they bring in, for the event near me, they will bring 4,500 people in, average. And that's for like people registering for the show. They also will bring another 10 to 20,000 people in attendance over the weekend because it's over 4th of July weekend here. And so you're talking 15, 20,000, 25,000 people. I mean, this is held at our state fairgrounds. It's a pretty formidable show. So like I'm basing my thoughts on everything off of that.
There were also no assigned booths. And in a post on their Instagram, Terrapin Fiberworks said that the only map at the event that they saw was a hand-drawn layout in a college-ruled notebook.
Okay, so this is where I feel like she gets a little bit ahead of herself on the story. So we're going to jump into some good old articles. So I found this on Distractify. We've got another one where... You know, funny enough, you brought it up, Jim. This is now being called Fiberfest as a pun on the Firefest. Yeah, no, I've been to some hardcore stuff. Like I said, I'm big into the hobby, and I'm a huge enthusiast. So, we're going to cover all of this. So we got a lot of different things to cover, but basically Distractify really has a great article. It's another one that I'm going to be posting. It has a lot of links to different things, but the first thing I want you to know about what went wrong with this whole event is the weather. The weather. So they moved to this smaller event venue, and with that, they had to change. So they had some changes. So they pushed a lot more people outside, even though when they signed their initial contracts, going back to the contract here, it says that you're going to be inside. It says that you're going to have electricity and Wi-Fi and your table and your 10 by 10 spot, and that's what you're paying for. Well, here's some shots a day of, okay? This was the line to get in. Because apparently, there was only one entry point with like 3 or 2 security guards working, and you're trying to funnel, like I said, 2,000 to 3,000 people through one spot. On top of that, the location is sloped. Okay, so you've got, again, a bunch of people are set up on hills, and this is a picture of some of the electricity situation going on. So extension cords being run in the rain. Okay. We're going to get into here. One person scanning in tickets. There's literal like streams and stuff. People's things you're going to see are getting ruined. I just want to show all these pictures because these are not covered in the video, and these were like just jarring when I got to see them. So there is one check-in tent with approximately 2 to 3 staff members working it, and the folks are getting off their super convenient shuttles, which was a whole nother thing. The shuttles were not ADA compliant. Again, thinking back to the type of people that you're going to have at this kind of thing. So it basically leads to this very, very, very big backlash in the community, and it's going to lead to an apology of sorts. But this was another fantastically written article by the Times Union, which is an upstate New York local, I think they're based out of maybe Utica or something like that, newspaper that kind of really broke down a lot of good stuff. Again, it covers, a lot of things I've already touched on at this point, saying that there's 2,000 to 3,000 people expected, that the venue fell through. It got changed to the Forge Land, or to Foreland. Let's see. October 8th, an email was sent out from Woolen Folk organizers stating the vendors could unload, and there would be 2 parking spots. This had some other additional information. This gets into like the atrocity of the festival. Here's what some of the outside of the festival looked like. We're still going to touch on, this was like probably one of the most jarring pictures of this whole thing. That's rainwater collecting. There, you can see pretty good right there. There's these signs posted around which were funny because they're supposed to be like maps and stuff. Yeah, there was no good maps. Here's a router run outside for the Wi-Fi, and I think this was actually somebody's, not like the event provided. Okay, now this is the base floor to that big building that I was showing you. This is probably one of the very few pictures, and there is a video from the inside that I'm going to show that I found that was actually really kind of helpful in understanding. But this whole venue, you've seen the whole big building, And you're thinking like, okay, like logistically they can make it work. Well, the problem is they only got the first and fifth floors. There's not all the other floors in between included. So you had the first, the fifth floor, and outside. And apparently the fifth floor was more like a loft location. But yeah, just kind of showing you how awful, and also gives you a good idea of the terrain. I mean, this is a pretty sloped little hill, if you look in the background for just understanding. This was another jarring, like, just looking at how much of these people's things got ruined. Now, mind you, like, some of these, I think this is called the skeins that they refer to, that we'll see. And, like, there's people that'll sell, like, actual stocks, but, like, people have made custom dyed yarns for exclusives for this event. This would be like freaking some fashion show just going down in flames. Okay, but look at all the mud and just things getting destroyed. So this we will touch on, it's in Emma's story. These boxes actually are an interesting thing, but this is, yes, cardboard boxes that were laid down because it was so muddy and people were trying to limit the trafficking of mud and stuff everywhere else and people stepping in mud. So they laid down these cardboard boxes. Well, anybody that knows anything about cardboard and moisture knows cardboard gets slippery. So as you can see, somebody's slipped clearly here. And that kind of gives you some good ideas on like what we're talking about when we talk about how bad things got here. I'm going to close this one out. But that's what these pictures are. I want to keep working through. So this was the pictures that I just showed you. Our contract. Here's the building. Again, if you look, you can actually kind of see it's really pretty sloped, this whole gravel area that they're on. And there's not a whole lot of room for them to be anywhere. So let's get back into the story.
Other vendors like Explorer Knits, who had shipped their stock on pallets and instructed for it not to be unpacked until they arrived, had to search themselves in multiple buildings and found their stock in 2 different locations. Some vendors were told that they would...
Osagi, I don't think it was a matter of shutting down to clean or anything like that. They should have not had this festival at all. Like, in my opinion, if they were responsible festival operators, they wouldn't have done this. They wouldn't have done this to their vendors.
Have tent flaps with security so that they could leave their stock overnight and it would be safe from theft and weather, but there were no tent flaps. Some vendors went to a local Lowe's and bought supplies to secure the tents themselves.
You're going to hear that come up a lot. Basically, the only reason that people continued this whole thing on, like, there's people straight up, there's one person I'm going to cover later on, and I've made this playlist public. There's more videos out here than I'm going to cover, but these are all the videos that I found with my research that were actually pretty good and pretty informational. I've got Emma's video in this playlist, and she has a ton of links if you want to check out any of this information for yourself. That's also going to be in the playlist. I'll post that at some point. But yeah, there is impressive levels of incompetence here.
One anonymous vendor who submitted their story said that the event did not have a booth space for them when they showed up and proceeded to walk them around, trying to sell them on multiple outdoor spaces, and also tried to have them take a spot on the 5th floor, which was completely...
So, again, we're talking about $900, okay?
separate from the rest of the event. Vendors who had arrived on time to set up their product had to wait up to 2.5 hours to get into a booth and start putting up their stock.
I just gotta let this
Others
play.
said they had to change locations multiple times while setting up, with one vendor saying that they had to change 5 times during setup. Also, remember in the contract that the vendors were told that they would have electricity and parking? It appears that they did have electricity access via very exposed cables that were running through the ground and the mud that multiple people reported tripping over. And when vendors showed up, many of them did not have access to parking. 316 Dye Studio said that all of their stuff was in an SUV, so they were able to pull up pretty close to the event and unload somewhat easily, but another vendor that they had talked to had to park a quarter of a mile away in a church parking lot up a hill and had to take 6 trips back and forth to bring all of their stock down to the festival. Like I said, it was raining, so vendors were having to prepare for rain when they had not been told they would need to prepare for rain. And the vendors who were lucky...
So something that, like, I've seen a lot of pushback on this whole thing is that people, like, had thrown it at the feet of the vendors that, hey, you knew you were going to be outside, you should have prepared for this. Well, I am adamantly and vehemently on the side of the vendors. So first off, they were told that this was an outside event and it was being changed. If you got the message, you were lucky enough to find the whole freaking Instagram thing because you didn't get an email. You were told that, hey, it's going to be changed to an inside event. Okay, so you're talking about, that's a big change and a big plan, and like, that's another thing that doesn't get really touched on in this video. There's a lot of planning on the vendor side that you're going to do before this, because you're given a set space and you're going to plan for that space to maximize it, to maximize your product visibility so that you can potentially gain the biggest draw and gain the most sales, right? So when you're planning for things, you've got your size in mind, and within that size you would be planning for, like, okay, if it's inside, you know, versus outside, maybe I'll adjust, 1 foot on each side for, outside for, my tents and my weights and everything else. And then if it's inside, okay, I don't got to worry about tents, weights, and all that. So now I've got 4 additional foot on by 10 foot. So say, 40 square foot, possibly, of more room in my space to then display more product. Okay. So that doesn't get touched on a lot.
Lucky enough to vend inside were crammed inside like sardines. The booths were packed next to each other with barely enough space for people to walk around, and at least one...
The staff, you'll find out, were not of much help and were very, very disorganized. Again, I agree with you, Sagi. You're 100% right. I feel bad for the staff in this too. This falls solely at the feet of the event organizer.
One vendor, Circle of Stitches, a Salem-based yarn store, was on a stairwell, and others were on the 5th floor of the building, which was really hard to get to and completely outside of the realm of everything else that was going on. Overall, the vendor stories have a really similar sentiment. There was a lack of communication from the organizers before, during, and after the event that made it really difficult for them to adequately prepare. In addition, some vendors reported having really negative experiences unloading and unpacking after the event as well. One person said that after the event, their booths were screamed at over and over at 9:55 p.m. to get out by the building manager, since apparently they were not supposed to be there past 10, even though their contract that they signed said that they could be there until 11 and then all day the next day. And something that I haven't pointed out yet, if it wasn't already clear, but the contract that they signed, they had never been sent an updated one with the new venue. So the contract had all of the Stone Ridge Orchard information in it. The building manager...
Yeah, so I just want to show that again. Yes, this is where it's saying the venue was. So when they signed their contracts, it's for the Stone Ridge location. And then here's the timetable, just to show that what she's talking about for setup and breakdown times is factual. And it just gives you right here, saying that booth must be set up by 11 a.m. the day of the festival, and then the party begins at noon, and then breakdowns will begin at 7. You cannot break down displays prior to 7. Okay, and then you have 9 to 3, or no, sorry, 8 to 11 on Friday for any other breakdown or additional packing that you would need. Okay.
Manager yelled at these vendors, telling them that they had to leave immediately even though they were not finished loading their inventory and printing receipts. The manager apparently called for one of the organizers, Pam, and Pam got there. Instead of doing anything to help the vendors, she just sided with the building manager. And this person says their favorite quote from Pam is her saying, "Things change and contracts change, and your tears won't do shit."
You're going to find out just how apathetic these freaking people are.
Probably unsurprisingly, the sponsors of the event and the special guests did not receive any proper communication either.
Oh, Teddy, there's so many people you're going to not like in this. But hi, Teddy, how you doing?
Two sponsors, Tony from TL Yarn Crafts and Adela of Lola Bean Yarn Co., were also a part of this elusive podcast patio. Both of them revealed in videos that they agreed to be a part of this podcasting thing without any payment, so they were just volunteering their time to come and do what was presented to them as a Q&A event. In a video on her YouTube channel, Tony said that she tried to reach out to Felicia a few weeks before the event to see what questions she should be prepared for, and just received no reply. She said she even emailed her the day before the event to see if she could get some more information on what she should know, and also just received no response. Tony says she ended up having to prepare the questions herself for this event, for them to ask to her, which is just like so strange to me. Tony also says that the tent that they were set up in was so dark and damp and loud that none of the audience members could hear, so by the time it got to the Q&A portion, like the audience questions portion of this podcast patio event,
Yeah, Teddy, wait till you hear about Felicia.
nobody had any questions because nobody could hear what anybody was saying. The other podcasters/sponsors were Adela and Jimmy of Lola Bean Yarn Co. In a live after the event, Adela said that they had agreed to be sponsors because of their friendship with Felicia. They said that they didn't have a lot of money, but they wanted to support the event, so they put the $2,500 sponsor payment onto their credit card. They did not attend as vendors, and they weren't paid to do the podcast patio, so they actually ended up losing a lot of money by going to this event. They also said that before the event, there was one Zoom meeting where the podcasters were told the times and some event details. And in this first meeting, they were also told, oh, we'll have a second meeting where we'll go over more details, over like what the actual podcast patio would be and what they would be talking about. There was no second meeting. Adela.
And yes, Zog, you're right. You know, you have to reply to people going there. Like you got to update. Like it should be imperative. Like when you're hosting an event, me as a host, I would have to let Teddy know what's going on. Otherwise, I can't expect Teddy to be there when I need him to be there to then set up to then draw you, Soggy, in for buying, Teddy's fantastic socks that he sells. So communication is very imperative, and you're going to see a very huge lack of communication all the way up and down the line here.
Well, also says that she and Jimmy found out about the venue change to the Foreland from an Instagram post talking about parking. I somehow deleted a bunch of footage off of my camera.
No, I'm sure you probably wouldn't be here, Teddy, either way. Let me tell you, you've just stumbled into the most fascinating world of fiber arts drama that has ever happened.
While trying to make space on it. So I'm re-recording a few spots in this room. Don't be alarmed when it cuts to this. It's still me. Please don't say anything about it. Please don't comment. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed that I deleted all of that. And yeah, enjoy. So finally, let's talk about what actually happened. On Thursday night, one user says that they showed up at 4 p.m. because they were told the event was from 4 to 9. A lot of other places I'm seeing 5 to 9. There are a few things.
So like I said, and just to touch base on this because I got Teddy here now. Teddy, this is a $250 event to attend per person, and then if you were a vendor you had to pay $160. This was an exclusive event, I'm guessing for 100 people, and I believe all the vendors had to attend, and there's roughly 91 vendors.
A few details in this story that as I read into things and as I read different accounts, I'm seeing different numbers for things. So some people are saying the event was from 4 to 9, others say 5 to 9. Some people were saying the ticket prices for the Friday event were on a sliding scale from 35 to 60, others say 45 to 60, 45 to 50. There's just lots of numbers going on, and I think that really just speaks to the lack of organization overall. But anyway, this person shows up at 4 p.m. There was nowhere to check in. The vendors were still setting up. They were still kind of frantically trying to find parking and setting up.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely money in the trash for what they're paying to get, what they're getting for what they paid for.
All of their stuff. The biggest complaint from vendors on this Thursday night event was that there was just really low traffic overall. There were 91 vendors, and this Thursday night event sold around 200 tickets. And the vendors were required to be there.
Okay, so there you go, 200 tickets. I couldn't find that statistic, and I thought she had mentioned it in her video, but so we have a number. Where the hell did my calculator go? Here she is. So we have 200 times 250. So we've got 50 grand there. And then 91 times, and like I said, I'm just going to go with the base figures of 160, which is 14, so it's $64,000. Okay, $64,000 brought in just for this night. Okay, and then let's throw in, let's give some costs here. So I was planning a wedding for roughly 75 people, and I think it was going to be for a nice multi-course meal, like buffet style, with like three different meat choices plus sides. I think I was looking at like $3,000. Okay, so let's triple it. Okay, let's say $9,000. Well, the vendors alone leave you with a $4,000 surplus after paying for food. Okay? You still got the $50,000 that you raked in from the people that attended. Wait till you hear what happens with this event.
They also had to pay $160 for each staff member that they had on their team, and some vendors had multiple employees there.
So that was $160 per person, and you have to go. So like I said, I was being generous in my figures. I'm saying $160 per vendor. It was actually $160 per person. Remember, when they rented their booths, they were allowed 2 people, so we're going to take 91 times 2, because like I said, most vendors are going to be 2 people. And so you got 182 times 160. Realistically, probably closer to $30,000 from the vendors. Should be more than sufficient to cover at least the food cost.
Some vendors reported making 0 sales during this Thursday night event. So that means they're out all of this money, they're out all of this time setting up their booth, and then they had to tear it down again just to set it back up in the morning on Friday.
So double the tear down and set up, plus you're also paying $900, plus you've got to pay for $160 per person, so roughly $1,100 just for an average booth to attend this freaking event. Yes, you're going to see there's so much scammy stuff going on here.
The warm-up event was also disorganized in a lot of other ways. The tables were really close together, and it was really hard for people to get in and...
So look, would you pay $200? And this is like one of the best pictures I could find with this. So you can see it's kind of like a big tent, okay? And then all the vendors were set up around the outside. And then you had the audio equipment here. And apparently 200 people fitting in here.
Sit down at the tables. The way that the event was set up as well, the dinner tables were completely surrounded by sound equipment and
I understand, Teddy. But just know, Emma's cool people. We can't. We're not going to talk bad about Emma. You can talk bad about Felicia and Pam though, all you want.
People were literally crammed into these tables as they ate their dinner. One attendee at the event said that their husband kept saying, "How many people are supposed to be here tomorrow? I don't think there's going to be enough room for this many people."
Yeah, Jim. $200 for something that looks shoddier than a county fair, and claustrophobic people would die. Definitely, Soggy. You're gonna find out. This was a big major accessibility and access issue, even at this exclusive event.
At the end of this Thursday night, he said, "I don't think we should come back tomorrow. It's going to be absolute madness." And they ended up in the morning on Friday driving past, seeing the line, and then just completely leaving. This event was also advertised as having live music and a gourmet dinner. The dinner was a buffet that began around 6 p.m., at which time Felicia announced that shopping was closed for the night, something that was not communicated to the vendors or the attendees. So many people were planning on making their purchases after they had eaten. They had spent the time before looking around. They were going to buy after, and then vendors were just told that shopping was done. There was no music at the event until 6:30.
So you're just sitting in silence for 2 hours eating your food, and then when you're done, you get your music, but you're not allowed to buy anything. And it's just again, I just listen to how ludicrous this whole thing is.
6 p.m., at which time Felicia announced that shopping was closed for the night.
So shopping ended at 6.
Something that was not communicated to the vendors or the attendees, so many people were planning on making their purchases after they had eaten. They had spent the time before looking around, they were going to buy after, and then vendors were just like told that shopping was done.
Oh, I absolutely firmly believe that there's going to be lawsuits from this. If there isn't, I would be surprised, but there's even more to this that I'm gonna show everybody.
There was no music at the event until 6:30, a little bit after the buffet dinner had began. Apparently, during dinner, Felicia also announced that half of the musicians just hadn't shown up, so only 3 out of 6 of the musicians scheduled to play were there.
So your 6-piece band is now a 3-piece band, and let's hope that one of them is a singer.
Not sure what happened with that. It was a little bit difficult to find out any sort of information about the music, but a lot of reports just said that there wasn't very much music and that these were house cover bands and not folk music. Most of the attendees said that the food was good, but it was not worth...
So again, Wolt and folk, so these people are expecting like the artsy, the type music, like some person like playing like mouth harmonica and another person playing a harp, and it works fantastic together.
With it for the price that they paid. Here's a picture of someone's plate. There were also supposed to be swag.
Oh yeah. I want to go back to that. Let's go back to this plate. Come on, show me the plate. Give me the plate. There it is. Okay, so $200. This is what you get. Tell me. Now, I've spent money on a dinner. I would be livid if I paid that much money and this is what I got for food. Like, I would expect the most quality at that dollar price amount.
There were also supposed to be swag bags that people could take home. According to this one
Oh, yes, the swag bags. I actually forgot about this.
User on Reddit, Felicia grabbed one of these bags and said, grab one on your way out. Don't grab it before.
Not even like the professionalism to hand you the bags that you paid $200 for. I'm just going to throw them here on the table and I'm going to scream/yell that you need to grab one. Like this is some fucking school thing.
It ran out of bags, and a few people came up to her and asked how they could get the bags to the event that they paid $250 for, and she allegedly said, "You saw me put them there. It's not my fault you didn't grab one."
Did you hear that?
And a few people came up to her and asked how they could get the bags to the event that they paid $250 for, and she allegedly said, "You saw me put them there. It's not my fault you didn't grab one."
Now you know why you gotta hate on Felicia there, Teddy.
According to a Ravelry user, the grab bag contained business cards, some of which contained coupon codes to be used at the booths the next day, a Ravelry water bottle and a bag, a measuring tape, earrings, a button, stickers, and 2 tote bags.
$250, and you saw the food, you saw the seating, and now you know what's in the grab bag. And then the fact that, like, not only were the attendees pissed because they didn't get to shop because they thought shopping was going to, sensibly go on for the entire time of the event. So did the vendors. But no, 6:30 6 o'clock shopping's done, and the event started at 4, so you got 2 hours to shop in. Nobody knew. And then the food's getting served at 6:30, so you get this nice awkward half hour of silence just shoveled in there.
They also ran out of desserts in addition to running out of the grab bags, and it seems like they just had not ordered enough. Though this event was not as crowded, it was still dangerous with things being shoved very close together. The booths, the spikes, the tents, everything. Lots of tripping hazards. There were cables running everywhere. There were stakes and ropes and all.
This was set up like, I would expect like a family wedding event to be set up.
Of that stuff. Apparently one woman fell over a spike, and according to a post on Ravelry, she ended up with a broken bone in her shoulder from the fall. Another person on Reddit mentions that an older woman fell within 5 feet of Felicia and she did nothing to help her out. Not sure if this was the same woman.
So Felicia, again, is the event head. Okay, she is literally the one with her name and face on the page that I can go to right now. There's Felicia, okay? Felicia is the face of this event.
would expect it would be out of this
Yes,
crowd,
lawsuit.
but these
Thank
were
you.
sourced from 2 different places. Many of the attendee stories from the Thursday night event report that Felicia was not speaking to any of the vendors or attendees except for her small circle of friends and the famous vendors / podcasters. And then here are some comments that she allegedly made during this event in
Okay, before we get into these, because these are so bad. Like, I saw this and I'm like, how? How are you going to be the face of anything and make comments like this, okay? So, mind you, again, we haven't even gotten to the event itself yet. This is the pre-event. This is the exclusive event. This is not the high traffic event. This is not what everybody is really there for. These are the people that had money and, like, are your power buyers, okay? And, like, these are the people that, just for whatever reason, you would want to cater to, okay? Like, in every sense of the word, you would want to cater to. And these people bought these tickets, even at this ridiculous price. And these vendors paid these dollar figures, even at these ridiculous figures. And, like, you could at least give them the, like, courtesy of being nice and making sure that there's enough of things for everyone. Because I don't know if we touched on it, but no, we haven't touched on it yet at this point. Let's just get into what Felicia says.
Response to some valid complaints and criticisms. When people complained about parking being far away, she said, "It's not hard to walk. No one can do anything for themselves. Everyone just has to complain about something or expects special treatment for stupid reasons. Good for you for not being like that. I made a good choice paying you." That's what she said to the musicians, apparently. "Everybody is too sensitive and needy. It's not my fault you have to walk your stuff here. I didn't make you vend." And something to point out.
Yeah, those are comments by her. I just want to go back because I think there was still a couple more that she doesn't touch on. She should watch where she's walking. This is the one I wanted to talk about. She should watch where she's walking. It's meaning the tent stake. Huge. It's in plain sight. Ugh. Like, look at these comments. What did they expect? I don't know what they want from me. Like, this is the face of the event. Oh, no, I got what you meant. They should have walked out. Yep. No, you're fine, Soggy. Don't need to apologize. Yeah, Teddy. It's not hard to walk. Like, my jaw was on the floor with some of this stuff, okay? Like I said, like, you guys are understanding now. Like, okay, I'm covering knitting drama. Okay, and like people were like, "Oh yeah, like this is gonna be worth a while watch." This is like, we're still not at the event. We're just in the warm up.
To point out, these vendors at these events, many of them make their living from traveling to festivals like these and selling their yarn there. These are all small businesses. Some of them are on the higher end of small businesses, but they're all independently owned. Many of them are 1 to like 2 or 3 person teams, very small. Moving on to
Okay, so before we get into Friday, so just to recap there, I believe that there's going to probably be a lawsuit coming from the Fall Hazard. This event, God, I just, there's so much. Okay, so you got 91 vendors there, okay? We had 200 people there. So you had 200 people plus the 91 vendors there. Again, you know, taking into account, let's say 2 people per vendor, between 100 and 200 people additionally for the vendors there. Plus you have, you know, the event staff there for this smaller event. I would say if you had 100 people, that's really pushing it. So we'll say that they were under, for this event, which is the pre-event, they were under the 500 person count, which probably meant that if they, so with an event, you got to have insurance and stuff like that. So Felicia had to take out insurance policies for the stuff at some point, because even if she's making the vendors take out insurance policies, which you'll see in the contract, like when we go over it, she is making the vendors take out their own insurance policies, which is not unstandard practice. She, as the event manager and the host, also has to have insurance on her. So given the code and everything for this building, she probably will be covered with what happened to this person that fell at this event. There'll still probably be a lawsuit for negligence. Who that's going to fall on, I don't know. But I think that the bigger lawsuit here is going to be all the vendors for breach of contract. And I also think that if you really wanted to look into it, you could also sit there and say there was breach of contract as far as like the actual attendees. Because remember, a lot of these attendees bought their tickets in advance and they bought it on the premise of a different location. All of these people have lost money because so many of them had to relocate, like they were doing Airbnbs and stuff like that. So they had to change all that. They lost their deposits on that. Yeah.
Friday, a little bit of a layout of the land, the event space. There were 2 buildings and...
Oh yeah, this would absolutely make Tana, with the TanaCon fiasco blush.
And then a larger tent outside. The tent was meant to be where the live music and podcasters were, but many reports saying that they did not hear any music the whole day.
So from what I understand, I don't know if this gets touched on, the music didn't start till like 4 in the afternoon. So the first 4 hours of this event were no music, okay? I don't know if she touches on the food vendors. There were 3 food trucks, okay? Now, when you think like festival, fall, upstate New York, the mountains, just, you know, that kind of environment, like what kind of vendors do you think would be like good, appropriate food vendors for that kind of thing? And now, mind you, they are slightly upscale because, you know, you got your ticket price is $50 for just the average schmuck getting in. And then on top of that, you also got your at least 200 people there, which is, let's call it 10%. It's actually probably close to 7% of your attendance, which are like your heavy hitters. They're people that paid $250. Okay. So what kind of food do you guys think would be there? I'll start going through the list, but to start with, one of the things we had was barbecue. Okay. I believe the other was, I'm going to have to try and go back into the video, but I feel bad because this poor girl is having a panic attack the entire time. I'm going to run my own event just to show Felicia who's boss. You go for it, Teddy. Yeah, and Soggy, that's what I mean by like people just wanting a good time, and they were just so disappointed. But I'll clue you in on the biggest like shocker of a food vendor here: oysters. They had an oyster truck. I think it was possibly like a sandwich truck, barbecue, and oysters. So a really diverse food selection, let me tell you. And again, band didn't come till 4 o'clock. yeah, you know, you're getting like the home comfort vibes, right, Jim? Like the mashed potatoes and like sandwichy, hearty. So the barbecue didn't make that far of a call for me, but yeah, oysters. Actual question. I believe Emma did go to the event. And she's also a outside person as well. She's kind of formed and culminated, like, you know, all the stories together, and probably the best video on this event. But yeah, I'm pretty sure she went, Teddy. She's in that area, and you'll see why I know she's in that area when we get to the tail end of the video. But I strongly believe she was an attendee, at least for the show.
And then the podcast tent was really difficult for people.
So just to cover, because I know I took a big break there going over a bunch of stuff. So you got a tent that was meant for like the podcast area and like the music. And now we're going to go on to like kind of the rest of the layout.
To get to, even if they wanted to go and listen. There was also a building on the right that had double doors for entry and a smaller building with vendors inside as well. On the double doors on this like old studio building, there was just a small paper sign that told attendees that about the vendors on the 5th floor. So the vending locations that we have are outside in tents, inside in 2 separate buildings, and inside on this mysterious 5th floor location. Because this is confusing.
So I want to go back here, and we're going to scroll to, we're going to go to the location. Gallery. No. This was their 2022 event. I don't want to cover that. So I think this has the Foreland in it. Where is it? Home? There it is. Okay, so we're talking about this parking lot that's graded right here is where the tent was, I believe. And for like the podcasting and everything else. I believe this small building here is what they're talking about with the double doors, because it's got several sets of double doors on it. And this is where some of the vendors were. And then some of the vendors were on the base floor here, and then the 5th floor here. This is the only building that has a 5th floor.
You would expect that there would be some sort of map telling you like where you can find the vendors, what vendors are in what locations, but there was no map. There was no way to, say, find the vendor that you had been specifically coming to shop from. You just kind of had to wander around. And
so there was no coordination, no communication, no vendor map. Huge red flag. That is like a glaring red flag when you're a vendor doing any of this stuff. If I don't know where I need to be, how in the hell do you know where everybody else needs to be? And again, probably, $1,100 or so per vendor.
And because the event was so crowded, that was not easy to do. Unsurprisingly, the parking situation did not work out too well. Many attendees posted saying that the shuttle system was a complete mess. The shuttles either were...
Oh, yeah. And again, for anybody that came in, missed the whole parking debacle, when we totaled it up, there's only 1,300, and that's including a vacant Walmart, which it's not a vacant Walmart. It's an actual functioning open Walmart's parking lot at 1,000 spots. Probably closer to 700, probably closer to 1,000 parking spots available total for this whole thing. Again, 3,000 people, 91 vendors, plus event staff.
Too hard to find, they didn't pick them up, and when...
Oh, and I didn't even tell you the cherry on top on all of this, okay? This location, again, it's not covered, but look at it. It's towards the center of town here for this place, okay? Apparently, so this building is connected. I believe one of these 2 buildings in the background is their courthouse. So this is like right in downtown for them. And it's a Friday. So court is in session. People are trying to do all their normal lively stuff. And then you got 3,000 people descending on this town. And I don't know how big Catskill is, but... I know that it's not a big town for the area. I mean, you can just physically see from what you're seeing here. It's right on the Hudson, but yeah, Catskill's not like a big town.
When the shuttles actually arrived at the venue, cops would not let them drop people off at the entrance of the venue. Instead,
yeah, Soggy, if you'd gone to Walmart, you probably would have been better off.
Making them loop around and drop attendees off at the bottom of a hill. So then all of these attendees had to walk up the hill just to get to the...
Again, attendees that are mostly disabled in some form, you know what I mean? Like I said, this is a hobby that mostly either elderly people or people with some form of disability participate in, okay? It's not uncommon. Like when I was watching through all the stories, it's not an uncommon thing to see and hear that somebody, a vendor or even an attendee or whatever, has a disability, a mobility disability, mental disability of some sort.
The entrance. One user on TikTok, damn it Alexis, says that there were no shuttles.
By the way, 5 out of 5 name. Damn it, Alexis.
From the Amtrak, even though those had been promised them. Her and one other attendee got off the Amtrak and were looking around for a shuttle. There was not one, so they ended up having to Uber to the venue. One attendee, Nitty Witch, made a 45-minute video talking about the event, and in her video she mentions that she attended the event with a disabled friend. She says that as soon as the parking plan was announced, she knew that this would not be an accessible option.
and I'm going to touch on their video too. It's also in the playlist. Like I said, I'll have links to all this stuff. And if anybody's interested, I'll post links for even the court documents and stuff on my Twitter. But again, Emma, fantastic as far as like information available on her video. But yeah, I've got this playlist that I'll also be tagging that's got a couple different videos based on this. And we're definitely going to check this video out with these two gentlemen that were more like honored guests, like premier guests. And then another video out that another person did.
Option for her friend.
That really touched on the vendors and hearing the stories from the vendors directly.
And that they would have to ask for handicap accessible parking. She said she was on her computer when she received an email about parking and responded immediately saying, "Hi, yes, I would love to have one of the handicap spots." She was told that the event had already run out of parking and that they would just have to make do without. On their public Instagram, Woolen Folk also responded to comments with similar sentiment saying that, "Oh, sorry, the handicap spots are out. You'll just have to figure it out."
And this was within minutes of announcing handicap parking, okay? Like you're literally, the one person said they were in their email inbox, saw the email came in, read the email, responded out, and they got a reply back saying that they were already out.
On the Skane Scoop podcast, they said that there were only...
Yeah, Jim, if anybody had known anything about anything in this event, it had been shocking.
10 handicap parking spots available. And remember, this is for
3,000 people, 10 handicap spots.
3,000 attendees. There was no way this was ever going to work. As attendees began showing up, there was a huge long line that formed, entering through one entrance. Christine Parker Coe documented this standing in line with updates on her Instagram story. She said that there was only one entrance with one staff person checking in all of the tickets, which made things go really slowly. They were also making some people wait in line, even though they already had wristbands, which apparently already granted them entry to the event.
Yeah, so basically when you presented your ticket, you know, you bought online ticket or whatever, you got a wristband. And this is where I will kind of like let you know that apparently at least the security staff that were at the gate staff, okay, were awful. There's plenty of stories of like people crying like at how much like they were berated by these guys.
Christine later posted an update on her story saying that there actually had been 4 total check-in locations, but because there were no signs pointing to these other spots, nobody could find them and people ended up waiting in this long line in the rain for way longer. As I've already talked about, the event was just way over capacity.
Okay, so this is a good snapshot of like what inside looked like, and from all accounts that I can hear, it took approximately 45 minutes to get into the building and 45 minutes to get out. And, like, you can just see how packed this is, okay?
And extremely overcrowded. The inside of the event was described as jam-packed.
I do not know how this, like, event, like, location was not aware. And I think they were just straight up lied to. I don't think the event location knew the amount of people coming in because they've actually made changes to their renting policies now because of how bad this is. And I don't understand how, like, how did this get past, like, any code, like, without, like, the fire department coming in and going, the hell is going on here? We certified this place for 500 people, not 5,000, like, even being, like, obtuse about it.
Overwhelming and dangerous. Similar sentiment was expressed by nearly every post I saw or video that I watched about this. There were just too many people for the space. Too many people to walk around, too many people to shop, too many people to eat or sit down or go to the bathroom.
Okay, so there, to answer your question, Teddy, I don't think she went to the event because she's pulling the stuff from other people.
One vendor reports seeing a little boy hiding in a booth just so he could take a break from the crowds because the building was too packed for him to even be able to leave. Others express being so overwhelmed and uncomfortable that they left the event early even though they had paid so much money to travel there, to stay there, and to enter the event. Because of this highly stressful environment, people were not able to shop the way that they had planned on. Many people had given themselves budgets for this and had planned on spending money to support these small businesses, but ended up just not being able to, which severely impacted the sales of especially the smaller businesses. This event was also marketed as a food festival with food trucks. There ended up only being 3 food trucks for 3,000 people, and the options were vegan, barbecue, and oysters.
Oh, that's what it was. Vegan, barbecue, and oysters.
I didn't see too many complaints about the actual quality of the food. I'm sure the food trucks were great. Several people said that the food was somewhat of a highlight because they were just so exhausted and hungry, and the food tasted good. So good on the food trucks, all of that. Vendors were also supposed to receive food vouchers for the food trucks and were promised food and water in the contract. Many vendors said that they either did not receive...
And this is a common thing, again, just to touch on. Like, for you to get, like, meal tickets and, like, for the people that are vending, and then, like, typically... Okay, so, like, I worked for a company, and like I said, they would rent out a booth at State Fair. Well, when I worked there, I would get a food ticket given to me by my boss, and then basically when it was my lunch break, I could just go wherever I wanted, hand this little food ticket in, get a meal, and it was already paid for and everything. So, and, you know, it's not covering, like, alcoholic beverages or anything like that. It's just, like, you know, a sandwich and a drink or whatever. Oh, come on.
Receive any food vouchers at all, or that they didn't receive enough to provide food for themselves and their entire staff. So again, it's just thing after thing of vendors having to cover the cost.
I don't even see how, like, they could get away with that with it, Jim. Like, Jim says that he could 100% see them overselling and not expecting people to show. That's true, and I totally get where you're coming from with that. But it's the fact that they had a good, accurate guess for the size of the event to expect, and it still was what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 to 6 times what this event facility was able to handle.
Costs that the Woolen Folk Festival was either too cheap or too disorganized to provide for them. Many of
Yeah, McDonald's would have been a better option, Sagi.
these vendors traveled significant distances to come to this event. One vendor came all the way from the UK, and many report not...
The UK, that's the other location. So you've got UK, you've got Scotland, pretty much the same. And then you have, like I said, there was somebody that said that they traveled 12 hours away, and another person that I read or saw a story from that traveled 20 hours to this place, okay? Like, so these, obviously to travel that far, you've got to see some lucrativity in, like, what you're doing.
Not even breaking even. There was also significant flooding at this event. While the rain is not the fault of the organizers, of course, it did cause flooding in the booths and in the walkways. According to most reports from the vendors, they did not receive any sort of help from the organizers to mitigate the flooding in terms of sandbags, tarps, anything like that. Some vendors' booths flooded. In response to this flooding, other vendors offered to move around their displays and share booths. So many booths contained 2 vendors who had each paid for $900 to secure a 10x10 booth and now were sharing one. In addition, many of them had some...
That's some straight breach of contract stuff right there. And yeah, I do think, like you said there, Jim, that Felicia probably just didn't care and thought it would be the venue's problem.
Ruined stock that fell on the ground in the mud.
Oh, I didn't see this one on the right. So these are damaged bags. And mind you, these are knitted goods, and like some of them are wool. So like these would be like hand wash, dry clean only, best case scenario.
You don't want yarn, you don't want project bags, you don't want any of this.
And yeah, on the picture on the left, you can just see, you know, like actual skein, I think is what it's called, of yarn just laying in the ground.
This stuff to get wet, and especially you don't want it to be muddy. Instead of any sort of actual plan for rain-safe walkways on the gravel and the mud and the hills, they just used cardboard boxes to put on the mud as a walkway.
Yeah, and again, we're going to get into these cardboard boxes because there's a whole story with this.
One thing about cardboard is that it's not waterproof. Like, when it gets wet, it just is slick. And the worst part about the box thing is that they used vendors' boxes.
You heard that right. They were not even boxes that were, like, in the trash from the event location. These were boxes that vendors had used to transport their stock to this event.
One vendor said that they asked the organizer where they...
I watched this video, and it is super frustrating. This woman is like, just, you could see how much this event just mentally wore on her, when, like, she's also the one that prior in the video they were talking about, this is a large vendor, okay? These are a power vendor right here. I think they had 2 stalls, so they paid $1,800, okay? And they sent their stock ahead of time. They actually paid to ship it there. So when they got there, they had to find their stock. No one knew where their stock was. It was in 2 locations or 3 locations across like 2 buildings. And then so they finally find it. They get everything centrally located. They finally figure out their booth after all the harrowing stuff that they went through to get their booth. Find out that it's they got an inside booth, I believe. So they get everything set up. It's a nightmare just trying to get everything set up because people are literally getting packed like sardines. Like, the vendors are getting packed like sardines inside this place because nobody wants to be outside. And so they are like, okay, what can we do with our boxes, because we're going to need this to repack our stuff. And someone's like, okay, put the boxes over here. So they put all their boxes over there, and they come to find out that somebody came by, started cutting up their boxes and throwing them down. And that's what you see for the boxes that people are walking on in the mud. So now these vendors have no way to box up their stuff to even bring it back home, to ship home, because they shipped.
They should store their boxes that they had used to ship the yarn
Yeah, they use the vendors' boxes after shipping them
to the event. The organizers told them a spot to put them. They had folded and stacked up all their boxes. They came back in the morning. The boxes were gone, and they were just all over the muddy floor. They were relying on these boxes to ship their product home.
Here, I want to pause right here, just so you guys can see, like, this is the story from ExploreNet. So as many have seen in our stories, we were able to do a quick inventory, and we will be putting in some of the skeins. So that's the technical term, I think, for the bundles of fiber that you see. They're actually trying to help out just by donating to another group. But yeah.
And again,
Oh,
the negligence of
unfortunately, Sagi, it still does get worse.
the event organizers is costing the vendors money. Another concern was the bathrooms. There was a booth set up blocking the bathroom.
Yep, you heard that right. They literally were packing people in so tightly they set a booth in front of the bathroom door. There was another booth that apparently was set up in, like, the entryway to a hallway. So, like, these people had to go around their booth to try and get through this hallway, which apparently on the other end of the hallway was where, like, there was, like, a bar or something like that.
Which is bad for bathroom access and also bad for the booth, because then your booth is right by the bathrooms, which is just unpleasant. Bathrooms were hard to find. There was not adequate signage for people to find them, and there was just not enough for the number of attendees.
And again, because this is an event that puts on a wedding, like, so that kind of stuff you keep discreet, because you don't want, like, some blaring, like, bathroom sign over here with all your wedding pictures and shit.
Seems like a common theme we're seeing. One attendee said that while waiting in line for the bathroom, they watched a woman vomit in a corner because she was unable to get into a stall in
Yeah, like I said, we keep getting worse.
time. Someone else says that there was a breastfeeding mother who was looking for a place to pump and ended up having to sit in the mud because there was just nowhere.
This literally has turned into, like, The Sims, or, like, you know, one of those things, like, where you create different ways to, like, torture, like, people. Like, I swear to God, this is...
Where to sit and no access to the bathrooms. And yeah, let's finally talk about this 5th floor space. This was a space that was completely cut off from the rest of the event. The organizers had not reserved any of floors 2 through 4, and these vendors were just shoved up there last minute. Remember that the booths were not assigned. Nobody knew where they were going to be vending. The only way up to the 5th floor was up a small stairwell that apparently was not even 2 people wide, or in an old tiny elevator. On the 5th...
And from what I understand, it took a little while to get, like, the concept of this elevator. But this elevator is literally like a 4-person elevator, small.
floor and throughout the rest of the venue.
And this is the stairwell.
There was just a huge bottlenecking problem from the overcrowding. If there was any kind of emergency, if there was a fire, if someone had even yelled, shooter, there could have been a ton of injuries if people had panicked. It's really unacceptable to put event guests in such a precarious position. In addition to the visibly hazardous conditions, the event was, put simply, just not accessible to many different groups of people. Most people are pointing out the glaring inaccessibility.
Yeah, it is a giant trash can of a freaking thing. It really is, Sagi. Like, I cannot explain, like, how agape my mouth was listening to all this. And then, like, you think it's over dramatized, but then you get the pictures and stuff to, like, support it.
To attendees who had mobility aids like wheelchairs or canes. The walkways were too narrow, they had gravel on them, and there was no way for people to move around.
And see, like, I really, really, really related strongly to this because I've got mobility issues. I'm 36. Like, it is frustrating as hell for me to have a mobility issue, knowing, like, a couple years ago I was totally able-bodied. And, like, I cannot imagine, like, the amount of frustration that I've seen firsthand just living through this now. Like, it's eye-opening to realize how many people don't consider it. But, like, here's an event that literally put on its face that we are ADA compliant, and there is not a single thing that I've found that's like ADA compliant about this unless you literally count the parking lot.
In addition, the event did not do anything to cater to anyone who would not be able to attend something without any COVID safety protocols, sensory need accommodations, any seating options, or access to certain facilities like gender-neutral bathrooms or nursing rooms. This is important because accessibility is important.
And again, you know, we're talking about, like, the audience that you're catering to. Like, you've got a very diverse crowd here. So yeah, like, it might seem silly to some people to be talking about, like, gender neutral bathrooms and all that, but, like, understand that these are communities that people who are transitioning would feel safe in. So yeah, that stuff matters here. And then on top of it, you got, you know, like, the actual physical disabilities. And then she talks about sensory deprivation, or not sensory, but sensory areas, like, for people who maybe have autism of some sort, so that they're not, you know, getting overwhelmed. And these are all important things. These are all actual, like, ADA needs. And, you know, not the gender neutral bathrooms, but that's more for what it's for. But yeah.
For all events, but especially in the knitting and crafting community, there are so many disabled, neurodivergent, and chronically ill people who are drawn to crafting because of the nature of the hobby.
And that's perfectly, like, a good way of saying it. There's just a diverse group of people involved in this.
This article, written by Gray Lundy, outlines what accommodations should have been in place before an event can be defined as accessible, which this event was marketed as. They say that it is vital that accessibility considerations are listed on the event website before, so that people can read before they purchase tickets. Overall, the event was just a disaster, so let's talk a little bit about the backlash. After the event, the initial response on social media started out.
So again, you've gone through, now we've seen all the pictures. Like I said, well, you know, I've shown all these pictures here of how bad this stuff was. Again, you know, the water, the maps that went to nowhere, just how awful the flooding and the mud was. Again, think about it. These are vendor packages, and, you know, and, like, see how crinkled up the stuff is here? Understand that's from people slipping. And, like, just look at the mud, the splash even on everything. Again here, you know, like, you've got clearly cords laying underneath things. Like, these are just extension cords, and, like, you're just, it's a mess. Okay? And like I said, this article was really good about laying stuff out too. This was by the Times Union, and it is, I think it's called a Fire Festival. I'm trying to get to the top here. Apologies. Fiber Festival. Okay. So let's get into getting out of this, we're going to get into this lovely apology here pretty soon. And some of the backlash and things that poured out onto Reddit and just different things. So we can finally close up some of these windows. We've got our vendor list. We've got our pricing. We're going to leave those open. We're going to close this, and we'll get right back to the video.
Pretty slowly. A lot of vendors felt that they could not speak out publicly for fear of repercussions.
Oh, Grandma's definitely having a bad time here, Saki.
Or being banned from vending at this event or events in the future. Some of the attendees were not as concerned about this and were posting more on their stories.
So I want you to pay attention to that. Did you hear that?
Out publicly for fear of repercussions or being banned from vending at this event or events in the future.
So there was like this kind of like trepidation about even saying how bad this was because people didn't want to get like a bad reputation for talking smack.
Some of the attendees were not as concerned about this and were posting more on their stories. But regardless, many people said that attending or vending at the event just didn't feel worth it. Complaints erupted primarily on Instagram and Reddit, and this was the point where people began referring to the event as Fiberfest. This was when people started posting their stories that I have compiled here for you today, and most were calling for some sort of apology or explanation from Felicia and the organizers of the event. Because Felicia did not respond directly at first, in addition to people being upset about Felicia's lack of response immediately, people also started criticizing the vendors who posted about having a good time at.
So, and this I feel like was kind of inappropriate, but I can understand like if you're a smaller vendor and you're seeing people sit there and say, hey, look, I had a great time at this festival. You're promoting a festival that was just poorly handled all the way around.
The event. So despite all of these things that I've outlined as being problems, some vendors had a pretty good show. They made a decent amount of sales. They met people, they had fun, and people pointed out that it was a bit.
See you later, Soggy. Thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a good evening, good day, wherever.
Tone deaf to post about just having a great weekend and a great time at Woolen Folk without acknowledging the very real concerns that many attendees and vendors had faced. Additionally, because Felicia wasn't responding, people started looking for other places to put blame. One of the people that this blame fell onto was Adela from Lola Bean Yarn Co.
And we're going to get into some of the blame here, but I just want to focus first off. Let's focus on the apology that we got here. So this apology came out like days later. And I want you to notice a couple things about this. So it's posted on Instagram. Not a big shocker. A lot of things are posted to Instagram. Comments are turned off on this. You cannot comment. You can only like it. And they only got 514 likes. Okay? Compared to like all these other things where they've got just, you know, pretty good interaction, 100 comments, 400 likes, 164 comments, and then they spotlighted different vendors. But yeah, let's go over this apology. And it says, to the Woolen Folk community, I want to apologize to the knitting community. The transition to a new venue this year was more challenging than I could have ever anticipated. I call BS on that. You knew exactly what to anticipate because we showed that you knew what you could anticipate because you had approached the Orchard about it, and even the Orchard said that they would have had a tough time handling 2/3 of your volume. But I digress. Logistics coupled with the severity of the rainstorm, they like to blame this rainstorm, you'll see, made accessibility and crowd control difficult for us. Again, I call BS. You knew that it was a venue for 500 people. You brought in a crowd of 2,000 to 3,000. You charged absorbent amounts and did not have the staff there appropriate to handle and manage this situation. I am sincerely sorry that our accessibility goals were not met and am equally disappointed in the way the day transpired. I hoped and envisioned a great experience for everyone. I will be taking a hard look at the ways I can improve Woolen Folk and promise to bring you a wonderful and inclusive festival, or inclusive Woolen Folk festival that you've grown to love. To the vendors, I offer an apology to you. Woolen Folk will continue to promote you and your business by sending emails to all of our guests with links to your sites in order to support your businesses. To the Woolen Folk sponsors, I appreciate your support, and I understand that this was disappointing for you as well. Thank you for supporting Woman Folk, and I hope that we can continue to do better for your brand as we grow together. I learned some hard lessons this weekend. No, you didn't. I hear you, and you'll do better. No, you won't. Why won't they? Okay, so let's get into a couple different things here. So we're gonna change gears. So we're gonna shy away from Emma's video here, and I want to go to a different video. So this gives you a good idea of what the event was like, if I can find it. Where in the heck is it? Oh, here we are. It's way back here. So this gave me a great walkthrough of the event, and these guys talked to a couple different vendors, but they had a very poor idea of the event as well.
So why don't we? So let's go.
This is what the event looked like live. So I'm going to kill the sound here. We're just going to watch the video, I'll commentate. But yeah, so you can see what the tarps and everything look like and what this outdoor vendor, and this is the small building that they're referring to. And I'm guessing this is before the crowd started. So this would have probably been at like 11 o'clock in the morning, okay? So he interviews a couple different vendors here. And just to see how like these vendors are set up, like these are kind of like legit vendors that are in here. They're legit storefronts and everything else. Here's one of the outside vendors. I want to see if this is who I think it is.
I'm from Yorkshire, in the UK.
Oh, fantastic.
So this is the lady that traveled from the UK to be here. I think she said she traveled 6,000 miles. I just want to read chat real quick here. It reminds me of the completionist thing. All these people that worked with him fell tainted and now probably, and the vendors probably feel the same way. Backed an event that scammed people. Exactly.
Flown about 6,000 miles.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
Okay, so there you go. 6,000 miles. So, and she had like exclusively dyed wools and stuff for this. So, yeah. This is another vendor, I believe, that gets covered. But it gives you a good idea. If you look in the background, you can kind of see her set up with the table and the little, kiosk and everything for checkout. And they're just selling some small, like, little trinket things. I believe this is the other individual I want to hear from.
We have happened upon a Scottish booth.
Yes, so this is the woman from Scotland. Now, she is actually a huge, huge, huge deal, okay? This woman, they should be kissing the ground that this woman walks on, because she puts on an event in Scotland that also draws about the same amount of people as this Rhinebeck event, like the actual major Rhinebeck event does on Saturday and Sunday, like 20,000 people. She does something in Scotland that's about the same level. So she has a very, very, very solid understanding of what should go on.
Is that correct? Is that the best way to say it?
Correct,
And who do we have here?
You know who I am, for the viewers at home. My name's Eva. I'm the director of the Scottish Yarn Festival and the Scottish Rock Producers Showcase.
So she's the director of the Scottish Yarn Festival, okay? So I'm gonna go back to me because we're gonna come back to her story. I actually got some good information and it's better audio quality, but right now we're just looking at like different vendors. So a couple more showcases here. And this gives you an idea. I think this is the 5th floor area. Look at how tiny this little loft area is, okay? Remember, $900, and like this is what people are getting. And these are the people that were lucky enough to be inside, okay? And they're on the 5th floor, so there was a high likelihood that these people never got the business that they were hopeful for, because remember, you got like a 4-person elevator to get up here, okay? But yeah, you can see like it's pretty sloped, steep ceilings. It's in a loft. Again, like I don't understand how they ever planned this event, like knowingly in good faith in upstate New York. Okay, again, grew up there, so I've got a little bit of feedback. I'm probably 30 to 45 minutes away from where all of this is taking place. I was more on one of the plateaus that probably got a little bit worse weather for this time of the year, but upstate New York, you know, it's not unseasonable to see snow from October till at least April up there, okay? So, like, it's imperative to at least have some sort of, like, covering at least, because, like, I understood it rained for this event, but there's a high likelihood it could have snowed for this event. So, I just don't understand. I don't understand how they put all this on in good faith. But yeah, like, looking in the background here again, you can see how the vendors are getting set up. This is that 5th floor area. And it just looks awful with how much money they paid and for what they're getting. And these were another, I think this is a Biopic booth. I believe she's also in the video we're going to watch. Now you can start to see, like, some of the crowding getting up a little bit. What it's like to walk through and looking inside the buildings, how packed they're getting. Again, look at this. Like, just look at how shoddily this stuff is put together. You got people on stairs outside. Okay, so that's all I want to show from their video, but this is Kevin Boy Knits. It's going to be in the playlist, but I want to make sure we get to this lady's video. So this, it covers a lot of really, really, really good interviews with the actual vendors. That's what this Fiber Chats channel set out to do. She sat down with the vendors specifically in mind and had them tell their stories. And I believe there was a couple that I really wanted to make stand out. One being Terrapin, which is the third story. I think this is Terrapin right here.
Third season vending.
Online store, that would be helpful even if you don't buy a single skein. Thank you so much, Meg. I want to thank you for being my guest today and sharing your side of the story.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to talk about it.
Yep, here we go, the Terrapin.
So my guest today is Lila from Terrapin.
Now, this is where you've seen some of the pictures from, is from this person.
Fiberworks. Hi, Lila. Welcome to my channel.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So have you done a lot of shows prior to Woolen Folk?
I've done about 6 or 7 shows before this. So
she's mildly experienced.
This is my
we're gonna
third
bump
season
this up on
vending.
speed.
We opened in August 2021, and I've been doing shows since spring of 2022. So.
What is different about your company? What do you concentrate on as far as what kind of fibers you buy?
Okay, we're going to go forward a little bit here because she goes over with each individual company kind of like what their specialties are and all that.
A lot of attendance and very high profit for vendors who've been there last year, so I wanted to make sure that I had about double what I would usually prepare for a show season for this.
Okay, but this is important. I want to play.
So that's when I started looking at my calendar for the rest of the year, when I would need to start buying yarn. I think the stock that I brought to the show I purchased in July and was working on preparing the colors throughout August, September, and October for this.
So she bought stock in July, planning for this show, and was dyeing it all throughout, August, September, October.
This is stock that I prepare for all my fall shows together, but the volume that I was preparing was specifically because Woolen Folk was a very large show, and I've been told there was a lot of attendance and very high profit for vendors who'd been there last year, so I wanted to make sure that I had about double it.
So that's a key thing here, based off of the past years. So again, 2019 and 2022, we have the brief stint with the COVID scenario, and so they're basing their experiences off of feedback from other sellers, other vendors that, hey, this is actually a profitable show. And they're probably communicating a little bit within their spaces to just understand, okay, maybe here's what I'll plan for the show. And then, if I get overstocked, great. But you're going to try and shoot a little bit under because you'd rather sell out of something, I'm sure, than have like a huge overstock.
I would usually prepare for a show season for this.
Right. And how do you prepare for the booth setup? Like what goes into the booth setup? Like once you get what size of booth you're gonna have?
This is important too because this gives you a pretty good mindset about like what a vendor is thinking about when they're getting a booth.
For me, I try to have like a relatively standard setup. Like I'm trying to set it up more or less the same way at each show. A 10 by 10 is a pretty standard space. So I have a set of grid wall and a table, a little bit of a basket situation, and a variety of samples. And I've got those organized in a certain way that when I'm imagining like a square 10 by 10 space, I have them arranged around so that you can enter the booth okay, you can get to me, you can get to the yarn. All fingers crossed, you can also access it in some kind of mobility aid like a chair or a cane. That's always a work in progress, right? But that's the idea. I'm picturing a square space in the way that I set it up at other shows in the past to fill that space.
And was that successful like in the previous shows?
It has been, yeah. It's something, because this is like, I guess, 2022, my second full season vending, it's something that I've really been getting exactly how I wanted like my past 2 or 3.
So she works really hard, and I'm sure this has been iterated across all the vendors. Like you're trying to set your booth up so that you're quick and efficient with setup and tear down. Your space is like, again, with the stuff that I've done, we would rent double booths at a state fair. We would actually have everything gets planned out almost like a month ahead of time. Like they're laying tape down on the floor the size of the booth and plotting out exactly how they want things set up in that booth for the best visibility on product, who's going to be where, what we need for what. And, there's a lot that goes into this, even if you're doing it regularly.
3 shows. So this was the setup I had planned for Will and Folk was based on my previous 2 shows this season.
And again, their setups were planned on it being indoors.
How far are you coming from to Will and Folk?
5-hour drive for us. We're in Maryland, so we came right up the East Coast.
So she's relatively close compared to the other people that you see in this story. She's 5 hours away. Again, there's a woman from Scotland who brought some of her stock and everything, and that had to be transported internationally, which I don't even know what the logistical nightmare of that would be. That's one of 2 people internationally transporting stuff. Then you had somebody that was also in from Canada, and then she was the closest of the people in this video that were stateside. I believe there was another person that traveled 12 hours and another person that traveled 20 hours or 21 hours.
So tell me about Thursday. Like, how was Thursday for you?
Well, chaotic. So we got there a little after noon. We pulled into the lot between the bookhouse and the waterfront building and immediately parked in 3 cars just to get off the street. I found one of the organizers straight away, kind of by happenstance. She happened to be walking by as we were pulling in. And I said, hey, I'm Turpin Fiberworks, where's my booth? And I followed them back.
That was a big complaint across all the vendors, is just even finding staff to have a good idea to know where to go and what to do.
Into the building, and they sat down and had this notebook, handwritten notebook with the floor plan, and half of it's scratched out in Sharpie and relabeled. And she flips through and she finds me and my spot scratched out. She's like, oh, you're supposed to be inside, which is what they told me in writing the day before when I emailed to ask, because we didn't receive a floor plan ahead of time, which is what I've gotten for all my other shows.
That's a big red flag, not have a freaking plan, a floor plan ahead of time.
Actually, I've had the one for my next show for 3 weeks already, so...
And that's what she says right there. She's already got the one for her next show, which is in 3 weeks.
So they scratched it out, and they haven't written me back in anywhere new, at all. So they were saying, okay, well, where are we gonna put her? There's some space outside here. Well, we filled all those tents, so we have some extra tents. We could put up an extra tent. And I'm I'm supposed to be inside. I'm packed to be inside. I don't have tarps to cover my stuff. I don't have pack.
So it's not to say that these vendors are so inexperienced that they don't know what to expect. It's just that based off of what they were told is how they loaded their vehicles for these travels.
A lot of extra samples that I was going to display because it wasn't going to be exposed to the elements. Yeah, but at the same time, another vendor's coming up to them and has all these very concrete reasons. They're also placed outside unexpectedly, and they really needed to be inside. And the organizers were just kind of dismissing them, there isn't any more indoor space. So you just have to deal with it. So I knew that was a lost cause. Obviously, I don't know, something had changed. So I was all right, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. Went back to my husband. We kind of moved the car sort of out of the way. And at that point, I got a hold of some friends of mine who said there was some space next to them. So I went and found a booth. The organizer walked by again as I found this, and we said, hey, I don't have a booth. This booth is open. Is there anyone supposed to be in this booth? Can I just take this booth? And they're like, yeah, fine, the door's done. So my friends reorganized their booths so that it was 2 booths. There's a pathway and their booth and an empty booth back here. And they had to change how their tables were because you couldn't have gotten to that second booth.
And this is another common thing that you'll find out is that the way that this whole show was set up, vendors were stacked on double parked is maybe the best way to explain it. So that you had a vendor in front of a vendor and there's no way for traffic, the foot flow to get to that other vendor in the back. This is awful.
From the pathway. I'm not quite sure what was supposed to be there. This wouldn't have worked. And it was also in front of an exit door, but yeah, we rearranged and he helped me set up
And there's people set up in front of exit doors and stuff.
I didn't have any lights, so
Talk
we were
about
completely
fire
indoors with
code.
electric and lights. And the show went till 7 on Friday, and shopping was till 6 on Thursday, so that's like dark. So my friends actually went to Walmart and bought lights for both of us because I was busy, like, you know, we wasted probably half an hour just trying to figure.
Again, you know, other vendors stepped up for other people in this whole scenario. That's the only reason, like, you're not hearing like people literally have breakdowns.
Yeah, like, wait, where on earth am I even going to be? And I was just like,
Specifically, were you specifically told that it's going to be part of the show? Like, was that in your contract that the light's going to be provided, the electricity is going to be provided, that it's going to be indoors?
The lights and electricity, yes. The contract that we had was for the previous venue, the Orchard, which was an outdoor tent situation. So I guess technically we were all told originally we'd be outdoors. When we.
So again, you know, they were told originally, yep, we're going to be outdoors. They made their plans for outdoors, and then the plans changed because they were told, oh, we're moving to this location because of the weather. Let's not forget that. They said that they changed to this location because of the weather. Realistically, it was because they never got their permit. So they lied. But they're saying in their information that they're pushing out to these vendors that it was because of the weather. So you can't sit there and use the weather as an excuse like it was a surprise when you're saying that you changed because of it.
We had the venue changed. There was a Zoom call that they talked about how great the new venue was going to be because everyone would be indoors unless they specifically requested to be outdoors. Repeatedly said this. So there was really no expectation that this was a possibility other than, you know, that little sense when you don't get the floor plan and you're kind of getting worried and you want to double check, which is why I emailed them to check.
Were they responsible?
And you can see that this is like actually very, very much upset this woman, and I do not blame her.
To the email?
They did respond. They responded in a couple of hours. They told me I was indoors. They told me that there was some movement of like specific booth spaces because they had just gotten the 5th floor space opened up and they were working to get everyone secure because of the forecast. So how I took that was more people will be indoors than how it is planned at the moment.
Right. So were you able to set up before the preview show started on Thursday?
Yes, just in time. We got it all together. I was done by about 3:30, which is when they asked us to be finished.
So what happened at that pre-show and what happened for the overnight?
So again, then we're talking about the pre-show where people paid $250 a ticket to get into.
Did you have to pack everything?
Yeah, we made like a little mountain. The pre-show was very quiet. There weren't a ton of attendees. The weather was really nice. Honestly, I think most people really didn't make very many sales. I made a few. And then because we knew we had this forecast and we had these 2 pop-up tents that to cover the tent completely should have been 6 sidewalls and we had 3. We still didn't have the 4th one. We all like kind of, they went and got some tarps.
So they're talking about that they're a double space. That's a big thing to understand here. So when she's talking about 6 sides, so I don't know if you've ever seen or looked online for like panels for these little pop-up tents. Like you typically buy them for like a 10 by 10, and then you can do a 10 by 20 setup. And so you would just get 6 walls, 2 back, 2 front, 2 sides. And they actually have like door walls and stuff like that so that it's zippered so that people can get in and out. But when you're talking about leaving stuff overnight with the weather, you want to have it at least something that can be closed off in the front. Even if they got to tear those walls off, they should at least still have the walls for the whole thing.
Discovered some stuff in my bag that I used. We kind of piled everything in the middle and like put it all over with plastic and bungee. And my booth buddies found a 4th sidewall for like the beginning the next day so that we could protect it a little more and reset up the booth without the rain coming in the side of the merchandise. But I think they got that 4th sidewall from the venue staff. I don't remember. It was very bad.
Okay. So what happened on Friday? How did Friday go for you?
Friday was very long. I got there probably about 11:15. There was water coming in the crack between our 2, because it's 2 separate pop-up tents, so there's water coming in.
So the picture that I showed, that would be what they're talking about. I closed it out. I apologize. Oh no, but the picture that you saw with the water and the actual flooding in the tent, this is the lady that took those pictures.
In the middle. And we were like, we can't put the booth back up the way we had it because this water's just going to be coming straight down onto the yard the whole day. So we took some of my plastic tarps and some duct tape and built, really my
there we go,
built
that
this
picture.
like gutter thing just
Remember I showed this picture earlier?
so that the water would stop coming down and we could like move it to the side and out. And we were just having to like keep squishing the water out of this thing all day. It looked awful. But it was that or like everyone getting soaked trying to come into our booths and see the yarn. So it was crazy.
Have you ever had a show where the weather wasn't perfect?
Yes, I've had 2 in.
And this is something that you see repeated. I just wanted to cover her specifically because we saw pictures that this Terrapin had posted.
In memory, that were pretty bad with the weather. One of them.
The vendors are not going to be taken by surprise. If they knew they were going to be outside, they could have had all their stuff. They could have the weights, their side walls. They'd have had all their stuff to be ready for it. I'm sure a lot of them even carry like extra tarps and stuff, so that way, maybe they could have even made some flooring and whatnot out of it.
Actually, my booth got moved too, but they've moved me to like it was kind of a like a VFD type of pavilion outdoor things. Everything had like a roof, and I was in like they put me under a roof thing that had countertops. So like there was mist and wind coming in sideways, but it was a 1-day show, so I didn't have to leave anything out overnight with it like that.
And again, she's saying that, you know, the other 1-day shows where I wasn't leaving anything out overnight. Technically, this 1-day show is a 2-day show because remember, you had the pre-show on Thursday where all these people had to set up and freaking have their little, like, they had to be there and they have to be in this tent, but then they also got to break down and then move everything back to their actual locations that they're going to be selling from.
Actually, my most recent show was locally, and we had a tropical storm come through at the end of November. It was about 2.5 inches of rain, and I was in an outdoor tent, my own tent, which has all the sides, it has all the proper weights. I built it up ahead of time. They told me I was going to be outdoors. I knew exactly where I was going to be the whole time. I could prepare
So it's this woman saying that she's vended through a tropical storm
for it. And I only paid like $95 for that spot, so it was what it was.
So you think like if you were told ahead of time that you might have been outside, you would have prepared differently for the show?
Yes, I would have packed a lot more weather protection stuff and just had that in mind for my booth setup as well, because I was kind of ad-libbing where some of the walls were just because of how the water was coming in.
Right. Do you think like if there was no rain, then the show would be fine? Like, do you think it just got unlucky with the weather?
No, I mean the weather made it worse.
You know, that's a big point right there. Coming from your vendors, when they say the weather had no impact on how awfully your show was put together,
but the crowd, just
a little impact.
Crowding alone, like the first 2 hours, our booth was in this little nook that was like kind of I don't know, 20 feet away from the exit door for the building we're up against, and we had people coming like into our booth for the first couple hours, not even to shop. They had just like finally managed to exit that building, and they were like really visibly frazzled. One person was like, I think I'm having a panic attack from the crowding. And we had a spare chair that was sitting, and a couple people were like, is it okay if we just sit in your chair for a few minutes? This is like the first chair I've seen. I really need to sit down. And we're like,
how awful is that? Like, I could not imagine being that overwhelmed that you're having a freaking panic attack just trying to escape a crowd.
Of course. There were some other chairs, but like not 3,000 people's worth of chairs. It was just, I don't know. The crowding would have been an issue even with the rain, because all those people were still outdoors even when it was raining. There just wasn't anywhere for them to go either way. So
because the venue is undersized.
Well, if you were one of the organizers, or even coming from the point of view of vendors, like how would you change that? What would you change about this event?
I don't think the venue made sense. I think it wasn't big enough.
It clearly wasn't. It's listed for 500 people, literally a fifth of what they had.
As soon as you showed up, you're like, they've done that creative photography thing you always do with a small space to make it look huge and spacious. It's like, this is a beautiful venue, but it's like, it's not really 91 vendors and 3,000 people big. So I really don't know where anyone was supposed to go, because I don't think there was enough like floor plan for it. So I don't think the venue actually worked.
So the organizers issued an apology. What did you think about that apology?
I felt like it was kind of insufficient. We haven't had, that's the only communication I've had from them at all so far, was that apology. It felt hasty. It felt like it wasn't really speaking to what we went through, how much stress and some of the just interactions people had, some of the pressure people were under, all of the stuff that should have been done and wasn't. There wasn't a lot of like, I don't know, I didn't really feel seen by it, I guess, would be the way of putting it.
Do you feel like the vendors all came together in this and made this event happen?
I mean, I certainly would have had a much worse show if it were not for my booth neighbors. I like pretty much credit them for making it out alive. Yeah, the vendor solidarity has been wonderful. I've made a lot of new friends. People have been really kind. The knitting community has been really kind. You know, it's not anyone's job to like buy stuff from us, but people are being really sweet and promoting our shops and helping us, because there's a lot to do right now. There's a lot of people are shipping their stuff back. People are trying to go through their damaged inventory. There's just a lot to do.
Okay, we're gonna watch straight through, because the other woman that came from Scotland is also next up.
And to have like people promoting us, so that's just one thing I don't have to think about.
We're just
Absolutely not. No.
Okay, so this is the woman that I showed you in the previous video with the other gentleman, where they were walking through, and it's just showing. What do I feel like? Chat's lagging a little bit.
So I have Eva here from Scottish
Scottish Woolen Yarn. Like, this woman's a big freaking deal.
Yarn Festival, and I was so lucky to actually meet Eva in person at Woolen Folk, and that was the best part of Woolen Folk for me personally. Welcome back to my channel, Eva.
Thank you for inviting me back, Lena. And I'm still trying to process the fact that I finally got to meet you in real life, because you've become a friend, and I think the longer you work in this industry, you kind of gravitate towards certain people. And I can't believe that we were lucky enough that you came to kind of spend time with us.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that event. So you are an event organizer in Scotland. You're not unfamiliar with what's going on in the preparation of the event, like how much work goes into putting something like this together. So when you came to Woolen Folk, you had certain expectations, like based on your life experience. So you invited me to be a guest at your booth and just to hang out with you guys basically for an hour, and invite my followers, my viewers, to visit your booth. So my frustration up until the time I got there was that we were trying to figure out what time I'm going to be there, so I can announce to my viewers that I'll be at your booth from such time to such time, right?
Hold on just a second. I'm going to do something here. I may double up on the sound. I'm just going to double up and try and mute this. There we go.
or where that booth was. Or you also offered me a free ticket to come there, guest ticket. So I was like, okay, how do I get that ticket? So all those things, I was like sending you emails and saying, well, Eva, like, are you sure you're going to get me ticket, or should I buy the ticket? And where am I meeting you? And can you please let me know what time so I can plan my things around it? And you couldn't answer. Was that frustrating that you didn't get any communication from the organizers?
It's frustrating, but it's embarrassing too. And I am still trying to process all my emotions about everything. But overriding at the moment, it's embarrassment and shame, and it shouldn't be. Because, you know, as an event organizer myself, I mean, I've been organising yarn festivals every year since 2016.
So she's done multiple different festivals.
Over a year now. That's my full-time job. How could I have been so fooled about?
She's literally an event organizer. This is literally, like I said, you should be kissing the ground this woman comes in on, because she is your best source of information for how to make your event scalable, whether it's good, whether it's bad, things to adjust. I'm sure she would have been a fantastic source of knowledge for all of this.
Situation, and there's comfort, perverse comfort in a way that I'm not the only one, but it shouldn't have been how it is. So we had organised meetups with Amy Palco and Rebecca Cole, who were coming over from Scotland for the whole Rugby weekend, and one with herself, and one with Kim Boynitz and the other boy.
So she had brought over other guests for this show. Like, that's how I cannot stress enough, like, this is an important guest.
And I know from going to events myself and organising them that people want to meet certain, you know, the literati, I tend to call them, and they want to know where they're going to be at a certain point, because these spaces are usually so big, it can be really difficult to find someone. You know, if there's somebody in particular you want to go and show, you know, look, I've made from your pattern, or I watch your podcast, or I follow your presence online, knowing that somebody's going to be there at a particular point, you know, really works for them and for us as well. You know, it's a two-way thing.
So what she's getting at, she's bringing people in to draw people in, because she's wanting to stand out at this event. She knows what it takes, and so that's why she takes people that she knows are well known in the community and features them at her booth.
That means it's also bringing people to our booth that maybe didn't know about us before, or want to come and learn more as well. So it's a two-way partnership, and I think, you know, the whole thing about this is that it should be a two-way partnership, or a multi-way partnership between organisers and other parties, and it wasn't.
Right. Like what?
And that's coming from somebody that values and understands the position that these organizers were in.
Was your experience with this event prior to coming to Woolen Folk?
This is important. So she's attended this event prior, and she's going to give you some of the word of mouth and the down and dirty, basically, on how this event is portrayed within this community.
Really poor. The difficult thing is that I've never vended at an international event before, so I have been to them. I haven't vended, so I don't know what the norm is, what's the norm for those organisers, and that was part of the reason that not only did we want to go to that particular event, but we wanted to go to, you know, Rhinebeck, New York Sheep and Wool, and see how things are done differently, not to copy, but just to see how things are stateside.
And so she was literally there to scope out how things are done. Like this, again, if you had any brains about you, you would be talking and getting influence from this woman.
And kind of look at our plans for the future, you know, we're business women, and there were elements of holiday there, because if we're going, we want to fit in a few sort of touristy things. It's not an insignificant distance that we travelled, or an insignificant amount that we paid to do this.
Which is another good point. It's not like they traveled a small distance. It's not like they're in upstate New York. It's not even like they're in the Northeast or New England. Okay? These people traveled 6,000 miles. Like, that is... Wrap your brain around the cost logistically just to get there.
So we were looking holistically at, you know, the whole thing. Right. So there was very little information, and I'll be honest, right, so I applied after the cut-off date. I was looking to do an international festival. I had actually been offered a place at one. This person goes, yeah, that's not going to happen this year, much that had been the previous year, and including one of those friends is someone who's been working in the industry for 30 years, and she goes and she tells you that it's a fantastic event, she loved it, she was hoping to go back this year and couldn't, and I'm so grateful that she wasn't. You know, she would have been...
So there's a person that's been doing this stuff for 30 years, attended Woolen Folk the previous year, and was so impressed with it that they wanted to vend there, but couldn't, and had expressed to this woman from Scotland, hey, you need to check this place out.
Flying out from the UK as well, you know, all the expense of all those things, but due diligence covers checking out people's own existing businesses' websites. It includes watching what other podcasters have said about previous events. It's looking at the website.
So this woman has done so much due diligence prior to this event even occurring. Like, she researched the living crap out of it.
It's looking over all the things before you make that decision. So I did that, I reached out and very quickly I got an email, and on that email, and again I'm ashamed to say, I opened it at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, still in my bed, a cup of coffee, and I cried, proper ugly tears for half an hour, because, you know, my business has already been through so much, getting it through lockdown, getting it through Brexit. This is supposed to be a life-changing or life-altering event for us, and it has been, but not for the reasons that it should have been.
That is how devastating this whole event has been for these people. I just want to lay that out there. She literally cried when she found out that she was going to be able to participate in this event, and said that it's been a life-changing event, but not the way that she wanted it to be.
The reasons it should have been.
And I feel like that's a very important point that you mentioned, because and like if you were embarrassed like that.
Yeah, I watched your interview. I thought it was fantastic. I shared it with friends here. It's like, wow, significant cost. I mean, if you looked at the spreadsheets that I have to deal with and the legal paperwork I need to deal with in order to put on my events, your hair with curl, it's scary. It is scary. And for me, I make my income once a year off my festival in September, and the profit from that goes into the bank. I pay myself a monthly wage, which just every month goes directly.
So she's explaining right here, and this is a fantastic layout for any business prospect, especially something similar to like this. Like, she makes her one profit from her festival once a year. And what she does is, you know, she has all her expenses and everything laid out. She gets everything taken care of. And then whatever is left over for profit, she goes into a bank account, and that bank account then pays her a paycheck every week or month or whatever. And she just basically lives off of that all year. So that way she's got a steady income while she's setting up and doing everything for the next year.
Off into my current account, wherever they're traveling to, all those things. So that surprised me, but I thought in a way maybe that's just the way things are done. It's professional. Applied. We were told that there were going to be about 60 vendors.
Right.
Not over 100. We were told that football, but I was told that football was expected about 4,000. When it changed venue, it became 3,000. That's a significant drop in football, and you've just increased your vendor numbers.
So she was told as a vendor, and this gets back to what Jim was talking about, there was only going to be 60 vendors and 4,000 people is what they were expecting. So even again, she lied to these vendors, telling them what to expect for traffic. So, you know, if I'm expecting 2,000 people, let's say, like, I'm going to make enough like product for like 250 to 500, right? If I'm being really optimistic. Because you understand that not everybody's going to buy product from you. And, you know, that's a reasonable thing as any vendor would be. But it's just this woman has ruined so many people's livelihoods off of this. And it's a fucking scam. And it's not either one of these women. I want to stress that. It's this Felicia chick. And what she did with all this stuff that just is audacious. It literally is completionist level of like just scumminess in general. And this woman, as far as I know, has gotten away with this. She fled, okay? So like after that apology, it's been radio silence still up to this point from them. We've not heard anything back.
So that's reducing potential score. We can get them to buy the tickets, but once they're in there, it's kind of up to you to draw the people.
And she offers, again, so much great fucking insight. This woman, put her on a goddamn pedestal. She's a fantastic trove of information. She's like, you know, I understand as a vendor, like, look, my responsibility is to get the people to the door. It's your responsibility to bring them in once they're there.
So there's so much emotional investment and creative investment into how you do that there as well. But yeah, like I say, the preferred method of contact was having a Zoom meeting, and then if you couldn't make that meeting, you had to get sent a video link afterwards. So the real kicker to me was suddenly, right, we're having a Zoom meeting, and it's the one about the change of venue. It was scheduled for the time that my own festival was happening.
So this woman missed the initial meeting where the reschedule occurred because she was tending to her own festival at that point.
Right. So absolutely no way that I can tune into that. And we were actually expecting them to turn up at our event to advertise what they were doing anyway. Can't watch it even when we were doing live, because I did join one of their meetings live. And the time difference, you know, it was midnight and I'm on a meeting call, which is just what you do when you're working.
She's up at midnight trying to watch this live stream that's been put out on freaking Instagram, changing a whole venue and everything.
Internationally. But I didn't have the time in the immediate aftermath of my own 2-day festival, because we're still striking down, we're doing press releases, I'm paying the invoices for everyone who needs paid. The remote vendors need all their stock boxed up and sent off. It never ends. Right. It never ends. And then you've got your thank yous to do and everything. So it generally takes about a week to properly tidy up all the odds and ends, from an event, and then you get to breathe, and then you actually go, oh, I've just delivered something. Maybe you should watch some podcasts and see what actually happened, because you should be that busy.
Well, let me ask you about that. Because, like, right now, we are exactly a week after Woolen Folk. Has there been any communication between you and organizers?
No. No.
That's just freaking awful. I don't want to keep cutting into her content here, but she has posted all of this fantastic information. Scottish Woolen Yarn was the last one of her guests. We've seen Terrapin. There are a couple more previous, Celsium, and there was someone else. But I want to go one more in here, and we are going to go.
You don't have the money?
This woman attended, and I feel awful for her. So yeah, let's just get into it. We're gonna drop this speed back down to normal.
Into a booth, let alone just. And then there's a couple booths on the right of vendors. I'm not quite sure who they are. God.
Here.
The door, because there was none. He had a park 10 blocks away. At least 10 blocks away. This event sold over 3,000 tickets.
So here's someone saying over 3,000.
So we get there at 12:30.
And she's coming in as an attendee. Okay.
I can see Pacific, Knitco, and Fangirl Fibers have a booth on the left. And then there's a couple booths on the right of vendors. I'm not quite sure who they are. God, I wish if I had photographic memory, I would name every single person that was there off the top of my head, because everybody deserves to be a part of this story. There was vendors on the right, and there was a narrow walkway the size of a regular sidewalk that you would have in front of your house for 3,000 people.
This is so audacious.
We walk in, we're trying to see or even get into a booth, let alone just trying to move outside of the booth. Now this is happening outside, and this is happening while it's raining. And I haven't mentioned the rain yet, because the rain was not the issue here. It was raining at Cake, it was raining at Indy. We didn't experience.
So that's another big thing to say here. There's other festivals that are going on, and this woman has attended several of the other ones, and she said, you know what, for what I attended, the rain did not have an impact on this festival.
Any issues. There was an issue for Woolen Folk. So, rain aside, we're trying to figure out how this festival works. So, we're going around a sidewalk, trying to get through. Then there's like the main tent on the left, in the grass, in the mud, in the flooding. And I say flooding because apparently the venue was moved to the Catskills, 30 minutes away from Saugerties, on the side of a hill or a mountain. So all of the rain was rushing down the hill straight into the festival, causing all of the problems that you would expect torrential downpour to cause. So now we have the main tent on the left. It has a couple vendors in there. It has the podcast place. I guess people were supposed to play music. Didn't see music. Didn't see podcasters or anyone talking. Now, I'm not going to take away from the podcasters, because they showed up. The podcasters that were supposed to speak or be there apparently did show up. If they were there, when they were there, we could not see them. We could not get to them.
So again, just the communication, the flow and everything, just look at how upset this woman is. And that she was an attendee. She didn't even have the skin in the game that some of these other people had.
So then there's a building on the right. It looks like a studio, an old studio, like a paint studio or something, like you would have an old building. On the first floor, there is about like...
And this was a smaller building that I pointed out earlier. And then we've got the 5-story building.
Not even 2 full door spaces full of an opening to get through. So imagine you pull open double doors, and that's all the room that you have for everyone to walk through in and out of this building. So the first floor of this building is filled with so many vendors. There were so many vendors in this small space that you literally could not walk, get to anyone, breathe, move, you name it, couldn't get there.
And again, you kind of saw this with the Cabin Boy video that I showed earlier, just how crowded it was. That was the best video I could find on my research of this. Like I said, I did the best research I could. There is even more information out there. Emma's video has fantastic amount of links. The other video that I just showed about the vendor side has a fantastic amount of links. These people have done a fantastic job of just bookmarking or like just tagging everything so that you can find all this information.
On the 5th, there was a sign, a piece of paper on the door saying, hey, there's vendors upstairs on the 5th floor, 1 and 5. Okay. So we go to find the elevator to get to the 5th floor after struggling through the 1st floor. And I'm going to backtrack on all this and let you know how that went. So we go up to the 5th floor on this tiny little elevator. I'm not sure how much weight that elevator is supposed to hold, but I'm pretty sure that it was old as hell. So imagine the tiniest elevator you could possibly imagine going up to the 5th floor, and every knitter on the face of the planet trying to get into it. There was a stairwell near the elevator, as there is when you're trying to get upstairs in a building. The stairwell was tiny, and it was full of people trying to go up and down with not enough room for people to go.
And again, you saw some of this with the other videos earlier from Emma's video, where the stairwell was just super, it's meant to be like a one-way stairwell. Like, you let traffic up or you get traffic going down. You're not meant to have, you know, bi-directional traffic.
Up and down at the same time. It wasn't even 2 people wide. You couldn't do it. So now we have people standing in the stairwell trying to get down. We make it to the 5th floor. God knows who's up there. No one knows who's up there. There's no list. There's no map. There's no placement for vendors. This is as a shopper. I'm going to get into what the vendors went through, but this is as a shopper. This is my experience. So we get to the 5th floor, and those poor vendors didn't. I would be livid if they shoved me up there. It was tiny, and it was flat out dangerous.
Again, looking at the Cabin Boy video that we watched, you can kind of see like what the layout was up there with the slope ceilings and everything else.
So we make it back down to the 1st floor. We get out of this building, and we start following the tiny ass sidewalk around to where they have other tents lined up. So this whole thing is like winding through. The way that I could compare it is, even though there was not 2 buildings next to each other, imagine you're in New York City and there's a building on your left and there's a building on your right, and you're trying to go through the alleyway, except instead of having an alleyway, that alleyway is a sidewalk, because that's what this was. So I am trying to get myself free of this crowd and find some place to just breathe for a second. That was nowhere to be found. So we follow the sidewalk.
It's so freaking awful. Like, I could not imagine.
Around, then we go outside, and then there's another building. So there's another building that has stairs going up it. So we go up the stairs, and I see on the stairs poor Anna from Circle of Stitches in Salem, Massachusetts, who I love and adore, that place and her, shoved in a stairwell that you would find in someone's house, almost.
Like, legitimately placed on the stairwell.
It was heartbreaking. I started my knitting journey and Ravelry and the knitting community to my friends. These are not just vendors, guys. I am so upset about this because these are my fucking friends, okay, that were treated this way.
I want to go forward a bit.
Or event based on the rain. I'll get to that. So the one good thing about this event is that the vendors banded together, and then...
Yep, and we already touched on that.
From what I guesstimated, from what I was told, over 3,000 tickets were sold to this event.
So there's a figure of over 3,000. So over everything that I've projected.
It was like they put 3,000 people in a fishbowl. You can't make this up. This went wrong on so many levels. I can't even begin to describe it. This is just my story. This is just my experience.
And it's a great fucking story.
Had there been an emergency...
This is what I want to talk about. She highlights this very, 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 very well.
As someone, if someone would have yelled fire, shooter, gunshots, bomb, there would have been...
And I'm going to say this because she doesn't. Death. There would have been death. People would have died. You would have had tramplings.
So many people hurt. If there was a fire, we would have all burned. Especially if you were caught in the building. There was no way to get out.
And that's what I don't get. Like, how did they even, like, get this event slipped by with the amount of tickets and people and everything else? Like, how can they... There's no way in good conscience this event organizer put this event together at this venue knowing what they were doing.
Their ears. All I could hear at Rhinebeck on Saturday.
This is just her talking about like the chatter afterwards and everything else. I don't know if we want to go into everything.
You walking, now we're curving around the parking.
That was another good one. Actually, let's see. This woman's story was very interesting. She tried to give as much of a positive spin as she could.
Do what they were supposed to do, eat dinner.
This person also had a very interesting story. And then, yeah, so I think that's what we're going to do for coverage on that as far as videos go. I'm going to do a quick total here of what I actually think. So we're going to clear everything. So we had 190, or no, let's not go overboard. Let's 160 times 91 enter times 2. So that'll cover us for 2 people for all 91 vendors is $30,000. Okay. So then we also have 200 times 250. We have $50,000 brought in for the pre-show. And then we're gonna do 3,000 times 50, because I believe that's a pretty good mean average for what I'm hearing on tickets prices, is 150. And then we also have to do 900, or no, let's do this. Let's do 91 divided by 2, enter 45.5 plus 91 equals 137. Okay. So we're going to take 137. The reason what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the 91 vendors. I'm taking half of them are probably going to want double spacing. So say like half of the 45 vendors I think is not unreasonable for wanting a double space. So then we're going to take 137 vendors, even though, 45 of them are actually double spaced, times 900. It's 246, 150. And then I'm going to just spitball based off of previous events. So we're going to go to sponsors here and see, we get a good idea on what kind of sponsors there were previously. So there's 2 biopic, 2 in wine, 1 in musical, 4 in stage, 1 bar, 1 goat, 1 snack, and 1 patio. So let's scroll down here. Let's do 7,500 plus 15, because there was 3 patio, or no, sorry, there was 1 patio. So let's not get out of hand. We're just going to take 1 of these each unless I tell you different. So one person pre-party sponsor gathering. So we'll just take that as an outlier for everything else. $5,000 for the patio. There's one $3,000 sponsor we saw, one $2,500 sponsor we saw. In good faith, I'm not going to sit there and put a Wi-Fi event sponsor. Stage sponsors are $1,500, and we saw 4 of them. And then winding area at 1,000, there's 2 of them. And fan is 500. We'll just put 1 of them for good measure. And biopic, there was 375 times 2 because we saw 2 of them. We're up to 27,250. 27,250 for sponsors. I don't think it's not unreasonable. You know what? We'll round down. We'll do 25,000 for sponsors. I don't think that's unreasonable based off of what we're receiving with the previous year and the amounts that they requested, and I did not include the Wi-Fi. So we're going to take 25,000 plus 246 150, which is our ticket sales, our event, our booth rental, and then our prepaid tickets for the pre, and then our vendor prepaid. We are at a grand total of $528,400. So over $500,000. Okay, there is no way, even with 525, we're rounding down again. And like I said, I'm going to take $30,000 for the venue. I'm going to take $15,000 for food. So we're at what, 45,000? So 525 plus. Oh, sorry here. Hold on. 525. 1, 2, 3 minus. What did we say? We're going to take 40,000. 525. 1, 2, 3 minus. Why you keep doing this? 525. 1, 2, 3 minus 40,000. And then I'll do another 20,000 for vendor, or for the location, and then we're gonna take, I don't think that you'd be more than $50,000 in all of the other expenses there. Little over $400,000. So $350 conservatively to $400,000 this person walked away with, and we've not heard a freaking word. This literally is as bad as The Completionist. Except, you know what? The good thing is with The Completionist, the money was in the bank. And it got donated and it went somewhere. This person breached contract, set up so many people in awful ways, and just ruined an entire festival. Yeah, they made bank and dipped. From what I understand, it gets more infuriating yet. Apparently, so if we go back, and we're going to go back to the video here from
Fun and
Emma, and then we're going to go into her description, and there's a key thing I want you to see. String Thing
Part
Studio.
of the reason why I do bring this up is because String Thing Studio, Felicia's yarn store, has been having money problems for a while. In 2020, she started a GoFundMe called...
Yes, unfortunately, it gets even worse, Jim. We're going to slow this down because I don't want to ruin this.
Keep String Thing Studio open. And according to the description of the GoFundMe, the money was going to be used to pay rent.
So she had a GoFundMe because she needed to pay rent and stuff because she was failing due to COVID.
And to prepare to make the changes to be compliant so the store can reopen. I'm not sure what the
she had some compliancy issues, but we don't know what they were.
Non-compliance issue was in 2020, and I don't want to read into it too much, but it is a relevant point to note that Felicia's yarn store was struggling. The GoFundMe raised $28,000, which evidently was enough to keep the yarn store open for a couple years. And after checking some legal documentation, Felicia defaulted on rent payments for the first 2 months of 2022 and ended up having to pay that interest on the rent, resulting in her having to pay $12,000 on the missing rent. The latest announcement when you go to the String Thing Studio website is an announcement that the store is closed for the summer, but...
And this is where we're really going to get interesting.
It's fall now, and it doesn't look like it's open, and according to this post on Reddit, the space is actually for rent. So I'm here in Brooklyn to verify that this sign is on the String Thing Studio. It is for rent, and it looks like a lot of the stuff in the shop is like empty. There's still shelves and stuff there. There's still yarn stuff, but it's like empty now.
So she straight up actually cut and ran. So she says that it's relocating, the business relocated. And I'm going to save you a bunch of sounds of the city in your ear holes right now because there's some siren sounds and everything else that go on here. But yeah, this Felicia our esteemed event manager, owner, whatever you want to call her, that made off with at least $350,000 to $400,000 in pocket after literally ruining some of these people. And she not only cuts bait, and she's taken money for her freaking business to keep her business open through a GoFundMe. So she got charity handouts there, and supposedly had to still move locations. I say this because I don't know, and I haven't seen anything for a Stringin' Things location since this has all happened. But from what I understand, and here is the coup de grace, the cherry on top of everything, apparently, and this is alleged, I'll keep it alleged because I wasn't able to verify this, but allegedly, Miss Felicia has now purchased $1 million home. Wonder where she got the money.
I think you can really see in there with the reflection.
Okay, let's not. By the way, 10 out of 10, this is the most epic background person ever to have in a video.
Under, like they're not closing down the store. They're actually just moving locations, and that's why the space is for lease. That's why all of the boxes are packed up. My source did not give me very many details, but they did allude to it possibly being about money. They're moving to a location in a similar neighborhood, but it seems like it doesn't have quite as many advantages as the current location. It's on a second floor and it doesn't have an outside space and some of those things. Apparently, they will be opening this new location by December, is what I've heard.
Again, I just have researched a bunch of stuff for this. I didn't come across anything.
But we'll see. We'll see. That's all the information I have about that.
Hypest hype person of ever in the background here. But yeah, so unfortunately, I don't get to give you guys a happy ending with any of this. Like, it's just awful. So, again, we can look at the contract. I mean, I think we touched on everything, but this is the contract for Woolen Folk 2023. It gives you the deadline was May 15th. Let's see. Fees for each booth space. If you're canceling, where to send checks to, what the booth spaces provide. We've already gone over that. Liability. This was an interesting read for me. It was this liability section. But basically saying that the vendors have to have a 3-day vending insurance, and that it's required by the state, and that they're also required to, pay sales taxes. This was interesting to me, and I think this is why she was so adamant on finding a location no matter the cost. Is because she can say that she thinks in her mind anyway, that she can say that she didn't breach contract because she never canceled the event. Because canceling the event would mean issuing refunds. Proof of vaccination. The event hours we've gone over. Pallets, dryage, the breakdown, loading. And then this was the other one that was kind of interesting. This damage section. It basically says vendors are liable for any damage they caused to the building, walls, floors, or furniture. Now, I'm kind of curious because this doesn't really take into account the crowd damage, because again, looking back in those pictures, there was clear property damage. So I think there's another potential lawsuit for the vendor or for the location to pursue, unless there's something in the contract between Felicia and this vendor, because they overcrowded the event, they willingly and knowingly damaged the property. There's just so much. So we're going to take that, we're going to keep that link over in separate. This was a fantastic post. This is also linked in Emma's video. Another Woolen Folk experience. I don't know if this is linked, so we'll try and save that apart so that I can give that to everybody. I'm going to give everybody the vendor list here that we have. So this shows all the different vendors. I know it's not my audience, but if you know anybody that would love to support these people, there's a bunch of definitely interesting businesses to go out there and support. And then finally, I'm going to include this, which was a little bit hard to find, but the link is right up here. It still works, showing all the pricing and everything for Woolen Folk. And then finally, I am going to link to, or I have my playlist here down the bottom. I'm going to take a couple of videos out of this. Remove from playlist, and because I never got a chance to watch these videos, so I can't speak to them, but there are other additional videos out there. This video is fantastic for giving you the perspective of a event sponsor and what they went through. Again, I'll post all the links and everything for all these in my description for my video. I might just go ahead and... I checked out this video from Austin. I wasn't a huge fan. I think Emma did a way better job here. I'm going to... Okay, we got the Nitty Witch. Some of these I did not cover. Let's see. This has the link to the Times Union article that I pulled up. That was also fantastic. We'll make sure we keep that in there. This does not have the other article that I had open from Distractify. We'll have that one in the links, and then I'll link to Emma's video in my description as well, because I use her video so heavily. It's worth it to give her credit. She's done fantastic research on this. There's still some great things to catch in her video. So, yeah. Other than that, let's go through and bada bing, bada boom. We're going to probably end the stream here. I'll make sure to update the description with all the links. I got everything saved. I'm going to put this in with this group if I can. Okay. I've got all my links here. We'll make sure that they get posted in the description for the video. But yeah, hopefully you kind of enjoyed this. I thought it was a very surprising, very interesting topic. And like, it's something that nobody's covering right now, obviously. Ain't nobody interested in freaking knitting drama. But let me tell you, this had me floored with how poorly this was handled. I really hope the people involved in this get the justice that they're due. Because this was so awful for so many people. And, yeah, I can't imagine that there is going to be a Woolen Folk 2024. I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I'll maybe do an update if I do get any information. Legal processes move kind of slow if you're not familiar with them. It can take some time to just get through things, so we'll see where this goes. But I do also have another interesting story coming up pretty soon here that we're going to cover. It's not as maybe straight up drama as this was, because I feel like there was a lot of straight, like, in your face drama with this. Obviously, you know, we're talking about like $250,000 just walking away, but it's a very interesting subject, and it's a video that Turkey Tom had covered at one point. And I've started looking into the company, and I just was kind of interested in it. And since then, it's kind of spiraled into this weird rabbit hole that I'm looking forward to sharing once I have all my information and my ducks in a row for that. Let's see. Jim says it was intriguing. Like, I've been watching a bunch of Cobra stuff and posting them to Twitter, like a super chat war. This is extremely interesting since I mainly focus on people. I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Jim. I thought this was like super interesting. I hope more people get eyes on this, because I can see it becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger drama as things go by. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next. My next stream is actually going to be rebroadcast. I haven't quite figured this out, but we did get confirmation. I did talk with Horror and Hellfire because it was kind of on the fence if this may happen or not. But I am going to be doing kind of like a Christmas horror thing over on Horror and Hellfire's stream, and we're going to be just going over like Christmas horror movies and a bunch of different things and some different stories and all that. It's on Sunday at 7 p.m. I'm going to try and rebroadcast it, so you won't... I'll have my chat and everything up and going so I can see you guys, but I'll be technically on Horror and Hellfire's stream, so we'll see how that works. I think I got enough screen space that I should be able to manage this without too much of a problem, but I won't be in control of things, just so everybody knows. But yeah, I think we're gonna have some fun here. I got some pretty cool streams planned and lined up, and I've got a bunch of different things for us to look at from different people and situations. We're probably going to eventually go back and visit the locale stuff again because I really enjoy that. I keep on top of a lot of the stuff that Smokey and Kiwi are doing, and so I'm very familiar with what you're talking about there, Jim, with the super chat meltdowns that King Cobra had, and he's had some pretty funny moments recently. He had a DSP moment that was actually, it's really worth looking at and covering, that we'll get into. White Bowser apparently is back. If you're not familiar, please go back and watch my Locale Hunter one. You see Jim is streaming tomorrow on his Medicare channel. Yes, I did see that Jim Medicare is streaming. I'm very, very interested to check that out. I probably will be stopping by. I've been watching so much of his content, and I feel like Jim is a whole wealth of like humor and lore and knowledge that of people like Mundane Matt that like I never even knew about. Obviously I've heard the names Worski, Mundane Matt, Ethan Ralph, but to just see some of these interactions, he actually covered a couple people long ago, and there's a couple stories in there that I also found interesting that we might check in and see kind of where are they now locales, like people that the world has forgotten about several times over. So there's going to be more coming. Jim Medicare's definitely inspired some of my content coming up. So I'm excited to see him stream. I hope he's doing well. I know he's been battling illness for a while, and so his post was both funny and sad because I get where he's coming from with the dark humor, basically. Working to this day still has me blocked because I made a Boulder joke to him on Twitter years ago. Oh my god. I'll tell an interesting story on somebody who blocked me before I ever made a lick of content sometime here. We're probably going to go over him, and I want to do a bit of a deep dive, but not as deep as other people have done. I kind of want to just like maybe link some lore together, but yeah, Tipster blocked me before I ever made a lick of content, believe it or not. I never made a post on Twitter about him. Nothing. He blocked me for timestamping. I timestamped a video about him. And that video will probably be used. It's by Mike the Bike, and I suggest going and checking that out. Mike put some intense labor together towards the middle of this year when he went through and did all of his content on Tipster. And there's 2 long streams. I highly recommend going check him out. I did tag the living crap out of it, so you can block it out however you want, skip things if you already know. It's just really in-depth coverage of Tipster, and I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. But yeah, I think that's kind of everything that we got coming up. I know at some point I've got a bunch of games. I don't know if I'm going to do like either Twitch or maybe a gaming channel or something. I want to separate it from my content that I cover here, but I do want to occasionally do gaming streams. It's not going to be like a consistent thing like I'm trying to do with every Friday evening with my shows now. But yeah, look out for that. I'll keep people updated as I kind of figure that out. It's a little up in the air right now. But the only people that ever blocked me was Mundane Matt and Def Noodles. I never caught a Def Noodles block. I thought I was going to catch a block from, oh man, who was it? I caught a block from Harley, from Epic Mealtime. He has me blocked. And I thought I was going to catch one from iDubbbz, but I never did. I actually kind of applaud because I went hard at iDubbbz on Twitter at one point, and I was kind of surprised. But yeah, I've caught Epic Mealtime block, and I caught a Tipster block before I really ever made a lick of content, which is kind of funny. But I really enjoyed having everybody. I'm so glad that people enjoyed the content. I'm trying to do something a little bit different with different lures, stories, and covering different people and topics. I know we're probably going to get back into Mama Max at some point. I've got information there. I'm still waiting for some stuff because I have reached out on things. Just because I wanted to validate certain things. So we'll see if I hear back on that. If not, I might go a different route. And I kind of am looking for certain validations before I step in and say any more on that. And it's not to put a damper on any information that's come out. But I'm trying to give it some good scrutiny. But yeah, hopefully, I don't know if anybody's noticed too. I went through and I did update a bunch of my thumbnails on different things, and hopefully, if you got any feedback on that, let me know. I've been trying to just be more consistent, give better content, so hopefully everybody enjoys. Other than that, I'm going to try and end this properly because I haven't ended it properly in a minute. Okay, what don't you like? You just get over here. Cancel. All right, now we're set. So yeah, I think we're good to where I can just, hopefully end this here. I look forward to seeing everybody. I genuinely appreciate everybody that comes out. Jim, I appreciate you. Teddy, Soggy, I hadn't seen you before, but I really enjoyed having you in chat. It just helps pass the time and helps me go through these topics and maybe answer a couple questions here and there. So I genuinely always appreciate having you guys out. Always feel free to question, say things in the chat. I'll try and respond to it. Other than that, everybody have a fantastic day, evening, night, wherever you are. I look forward to seeing you all next time, and I'm really excited to bring these topics to you. So you all have a great day and good night. Thank you.
Show me how to lie, you're getting better all the time, and turning all against one is an art that's hard to teach. Another clever word sets off an unsuspecting hurt, and as you step back in the line,